Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagut here. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, please do let me know. Give me a thumbs up so that I am aware that I'm audible and we can start the discussion. Okay, done. Let's start then. Let's start. Before I start, as usual, this is my last class. I'll be winding up with a discussion of all the left out topics today. So I've given you a list of articles which have appeared in the newspaper in the last 1 week. Just check if the comment is public now. Please do let me know. There is a comment by the name of person Sham, and that is me, by the way. Okay, and that particular comment basically has the link for the articles, around 20 plus articles. Okay, around 20 plus articles are there in the last 1.5 week related to Niti Ayog, related to planning commission, related to etc. Right, all these 20 plus articles I've given you the list of it. Download and read all of them. Okay, now let me start the discussion. We started with the concept of planning last week, correct? Last week in the sense basically this Tuesday. Okay, we started with the concept of planning, and in planning what we have discussed, what do you mean by a plan basically is a process wherein the government using the resources that they have will try to achieve certain targets. The target could be GDP growth rate, the target could be, right, let's say social welfare, the target could be industrial growth rate, etc. So using the resources, set up the targets, allocate the resources and implement the plan. That process is called as economic planning, and in case of India we follow a concept of 5-year plans. Okay, 5-year plan. After that, we have discussed the National Development Council as well as the Planning Commission. The basic idea of a planning commission is that it is an authority which was set up through executive order of the government. The composition I've given you, the chairman was the prime minister. Anybody who is the prime minister by default will become the chairperson or the chairman. In addition to that, there is also a vice chairman, right, again appointed by the government, right, etc. And the planning commission will have the role of making 5-year plans, proposing the 5-year plan to National Development Council. National Development Council will have a similar composition, but very important difference is in National Development Council there is a representation of the states as well as the union territories. There's a representation of states as well as the union territories. That is National Development Council. Right, so NDC will take the 5-year plan, right, review the 5-year plan and pass it or approve it, send it to the cabinet. Cabinet will approve it, send it to the parliament. Once the parliament approves it, 5-year plans are implemented. Right, that is basically the process. After that, the goals that the planning commission wanted to achieve, basically I've given you important goals such as growth, equity, modernization, self-reliance, right, eradication of poverty, employment generation, eliminating and reducing and eliminating regional disparities, etc. These were the goals which were set up by the planning commission, right, over a longer period. Now, after that, we have discussed the 12 5-year plans, basically 12 5-year plans. So it will start from 1951. I hope you remember that 1951, then 56, then 61, right? Then 66, 51 to 56, 56 to 61, 61 to 66. After that, 3 annual plans, 69 to 74, 74 to 79. That was the fifth 5-year plan. Fifth 5-year plan, in between were discontinued. There was a change in the government. A new plan was implemented, sixth 5-year plan. That was a rolling plan, but the government did not continue because there was a change in the government. A new government was formed. New government replaced the rolling plan with another sixth 5-year plan starting from 1980, 80 to 85, 85 to 90. Again, crisis in Indian economy. Again, annual plans were implemented. So 92 to 97, 97 to 02, 02 to 07, 07 to 12, 12 to 17. Right? So these were the 5-year plans which were implemented. Okay, now, right, we were supposed to start with 5-year plans. We are supposed to start with 5-year plans. Now, in the next 45 minutes to 1 hour, I'll give you a lot of factual information. I'll repeat the statement. Next 45 minutes to 1 hour, right, I'll give you a lot of factual information. Right, so Please be aware of these factual information points. I would recommend that in each of the 5-year plan, try to remember three to four points. 3 to 4 points. Please do not try to read everything in detail. This is my suggestion to you, because 5-year plans, every 5-year plan has a document of more than 1,000 pages. Please don't try to read everything in detail. It is not at all needed for UPSC GS paper 3. Not at all needed. So I'll try to give you 3 to 4 points, important points in all the 12 5-year plans. Try to remember that, more than sufficient. Now let me start. First 5-year plan. The first 5-year plan was implemented from 51 to 56. Now after partition, lot of population remained in India, and a small part of the population went to Pakistan. Correct? Undivided India. Please go back to your history. Right? So undivided India, after the partition took place, most of the population remained in India, and small part of the population went to Pakistan. But if you look at the second point here, second point is, what about agriculture sector? Lot of important area for the cultivation of the crops. I repeat, lot of important area which was important for the cultivation of the crop was actually given to Pakistan or remained in Pakistan. So on one side, area which was used for cultivation, right, some important area went to Pakistan, but on the other side, lot of population remained in India. So don't you think, looking at all these particular features, agriculture should be the focus of first 5-year plan? Does it make sense to you? Looking at all of these problems, agriculture sector should be the focus of first 5-year plan, and that is exactly what happened. In the first 5-year plan, Government of India focused on the agriculture sector because the lot of population was there in India, and there was a concern regarding the cultivation, agriculture sector, because food security and availability of food grains was a concern. So that is the reason in the first 5-year plan, Government of India targeted agriculture sector, and the objective was, if you promote agriculture sector, the food availability in India will start increasing. And second, if availability will start increasing, automatically the price levels will start cooling down. And another reason was the import of food grains. Right? We used to import raw material. We used to import capital into India. We used to import machineries. We were also dependent on import of food grains. So we were importing a huge amount of food grains into the domestic market. Government of India wanted to reduce the import dependence. So another very important parameter of the focus in the first 5-year plan was reduction of the import of food grains. Third, in order to promote food grain production, government also started promoting the idea of irrigation projects. Right? That is, irrigation projects such as a Bhakra Nangal, right, etc., were actually promoted in the first 5-year plan itself. Apart from this, right, please understand, the first 5-year plan also implemented a policy called as Harrod-Domer model. I'll discuss that now. Apart from these important points, first one was irrigation projects. Second one was to control prices. That was one of the very important point. Third one was agriculture sector was promoted. It was the focus. Fourth point is Harrod-Domer model. Harrod-Domer model. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what is this Harrod-Domer model? Let me start with a very simple explanation here. Harrod-Domer model refers to an economic model. It is basically an arithmetic explanation. It was an equation that was given by two different economists. One is Mr. Harrod and another is Mr. Domer. We have clubbed both of these models, and we have only one type of model, which is called as a Harrod-Domer model. What does this Harrod-Domer model or equation actually explain? Harrod-Domer model says, if a country wants to achieve a higher growth rate, then the savings rate in the country should increase and the capital output ratio should decrease. I'll repeat the statement. The Harrod-Domer model states that if a country wants to achieve a higher growth rate, then the savings rate in the country should increase and the capital output ratio must decrease. Now, please tell me, I'll explain both the relations here. Please tell me, can I say if the savings rate in India starts increasing, it is connected and will have a direct influence on growth rate of Indian economy? Please do let me know. Today is the last class. I am asking you whether you are revising or not now. Right? Because if you ask me, sir, have you discussed the connection between the savings and growth rate? Of course, yes. Second chapter, I believe in the third or fourth class, there is a correlation between if your income increases, part of your income you'll start saving, that is called as savings. If your savings will increase, your investments will increase. And if your investments will increase, investment right in the overall economy will experience a growth, capital formation will take place, and higher capital formation, growth will also start increasing. So all of you okay with the first relation in this equation? All of you okay with the first relation in this equation, that is higher the savings, growth rate will also start experiencing a growth, right? The growth rate will also start increasing. What is this capital output ratio? Capital output ratio. Capital output ratio simply means, I'll explain this, listen to me very carefully. How much is the investment that you have done in the capital to, right, to have production? How much is on an average investment that you have done in the capital? Capital means what? Machinery, right? Manufacturing facility, etc. How much is your total investment to have production in the economy? That is called as capital output ratio. For example, I'll take two numbers here. Let's say in situation one, in situation one, you'll spend a 10 rupee capital to have 1 unit of output. You'll spend 10 rupee capital to have 1 unit of output. And in the situation 2, you'll spend, let's say, 6 rupees capital on the capital to get 1 unit of output. I'll repeat it again. Listen to me very carefully. In the situation 1, you're spending 10 rupee on the capital to get 1 unit of output. And in the situation 2, you're spending 6 rupees on the capital to have 1 unit of production. Now, between S1 and S2, please tell me where your capital investment is efficient. Between S1 and S2, where is your capital investment efficient? I'm not asking where is your capital investment more. Some of you are misunderstanding my statement. I'll repeat the statement again. Between S1 and S2, where do you think your capital investment is efficient? All of you will agree it is situation 2. Yes or no? In situation 2, you are spending 6 rupees on the capital to get 1 unit. Whereas in situation 1, you are spending 10 rupees to get 1 unit of output. Right? So basically, in case of situation 2, you are efficient, you are having efficient investment. If I just want to extrapolate this, let me extrapolate it. Imagine your total investment on capital is 90 rupees. Imagine your total investment on the capital is 90 rupees. Now, can I say, if this is the capital output ratio, in situation 1, you will have 9 units of output. And in the situation 2, you will have 15 units of output. Yes or no? In situation 1, you will have 9 units of output. And in the situation 2, you will have 15 units of output. So argument is simple here. Higher the production, will this not contribute to higher GDP? Yes or no? Higher the production with the same amount of investment. Again, investment, I'm not talking market price here. Investment. With the same amount of investment, in the second situation, you're able to produce more output. And because you're able to produce more output, don't you think the GDP in the second situation would be increasing at a much faster pace compared to first situation? What if this situation, that is a capital output ratio, in the situation 3 will further fall down to 2 rupees per unit? Think of it. If the capital output ratio further falls down to 2 rupees per unit, right, what will happen as a result of this? Can I say with the same amount of investment, I'll be able to produce 45 units now? And also, can we make an inference now? Can we make an inference that is with lowering of capital output ratio, not only the productivity in the economy increases, but the overall production will increase and that will contribute to higher GDP. Now, can I write like this? The GDP is inversely proportional to capital output ratio. COR stands for capital output ratio. GDP is inversely proportional to capital output ratio. That is, if the capital output ratio will start decreasing, GDP will start increasing. Look at the formula. Please look at the formula. Right? Growth is equal to savings divided by capital output ratio. Right? That is, capital output ratio decreases, we expect the GDP to increase. If savings increases, we expect the GDP to increase. This is a Harrod-Domer model. Harrod-Domer model states, if you want to achieve a higher growth, then reduce the capital output ratio and increase the savings rate in the economy. Now, please tell me, this was in fact asked by UPSC. In prelims, this was asked by UPSC, application-based question. If in a country, imagine, in a country, the savings rate increases, but the capital output ratio also increases. I'll repeat the statement. In a country, savings rate increases, but along with that, capital output ratio also increases. Does it necessarily mean your GDP will increase? Think of it. Does it necessarily mean your GDP will increase? No, it will not increase. Right? And vice versa, can I also say? That is, if the savings rate falls down and the capital output ratio also will fall down, does it necessarily mean GDP will increase? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Right? So I hope you understand this. These kind of questions have been asked by UPSC. They have been asked by UPSC. Now there is one more term, incremental capital output ratio. Incremental capital output ratio, ICAR. I'll write the term here, incremental capital output ratio, ICAR. Now, what is the concept of ICAR? Let me give you one example, then I'll explain it. Imagine between 2000 to 2023. Imagine between 2000 to 2023, the total amount of investment in the capital is 100 crore rupees. Okay, the total amount of investment in the capital is 100 crore, and the total output is 20 crore units. Total output is 20 crore units. Now, please tell me, what is the capital output ratio in this example? Please tell me, what is the capital output ratio in this example? Can I say capital output ratio will be 5? Some of you are doing very, very wrong mathematics. Please look at it. How much is the output divided by how much is the capital divided by how much is the output? So capital output ratio, that is, for every 1 unit to be produced, you are spending a capital of 5 rupees. Is it okay? For every 5 rupees investment in the capital, you are able to produce 1 unit of output. Now, please tell me, will you be able to find out using this data, whatever data I've written in the slide, will you be able to find out what is the efficiency of investment of the capital done in the financial year 22 and 23? I'll repeat the question again. Please look at the data. You have an investment between 2000 to 23, okay, and you have an output. You are able to calculate what is the capital output ratio. Now, my question is, investment was also done in the financial year 23. That is 22 and 23, certain amount of capital was invested, and as a result of which a certain unit was produced. Now, please tell me, using this data, will you be able to find out what is the efficiency of the capital that you have invested in the financial year 23? Is there anybody in the classroom who says, I can find out? Please do let me know how. If anybody says, sir, yes, I know a way to find out, please tell me how. You cannot find out. You cannot find out what was the efficiency of the capital invested in the financial year 23. Why? You do not have the data for it. You do not have the data. Data is, you want to find out in the financial year 23, how much investment was done. Correct. How much capital investment was done in financial 23, you don't know. And as a result of this investment, how much was the increased production? How much was the incremental production? By what number the production increased? You don't know. Right? So until and unless you know this data, will you be able to find out efficiency of the capital invested in financial 23? Answer is no. Which means, and now please listen to me carefully, I'll give a technical statement. Can I say, if you look at the capital output ratio, if you look at capital output ratio, it will simply give you data regarding historical investment. I'll repeat the statement. If you look at the capital output ratio, it is giving you data regarding historical investment. If you want to find out what is the efficiency of investment for 1 year using capital output ratio, you cannot find out. That is the problem. But you are a planning commission member, or let's say you are a Niti Aayog member, you are, let's say, a chief economic advisor to government. So don't you want to find out in the last 1 year, because of your policies, how much was the investment done in capital? Yes. And as a result of this investment, don't you want to find out by how much percentage, by how many units production has increased? Of course, yes. Just to make it much more clear, let's say hypothetically, between 2000 to 2022, of course I'm talking about financial years here, okay, between 2000 to 2022, imagine the investment done was 90 crore. Imagine the investment done was 90 crore, and as a result of this, the output that we were able to achieve was, let's say, I'll just throw arbitrary number here, was let's say 10 crore. Again, just arbitrary numbers. Don't worry about anything else, just arbitrary numbers. Okay, was 10 crore. Now, between 22 and 23, 10 crore rupee worth of investment was done in the capital. And as a result of this, the output has increased. Output has increased by 10 crore units, taking the total to 20 crore units. So total amount of investment is 100 crore. Total amount of output is 20 crore. Can I find out using this data now? Can I find out in the financial year 23, as a result of investment done in financial year 23, by how many units the production has increased? Is it okay? Can I use this data to find out, to increase the production by 1 unit, how much more capital should I invest? And if I use this data, please use this data and tell me, if I use this data, can I say to increase the production by 1 unit, I need to invest 1 rupee capital? Yes or no? I'll repeat it again. For 22 and 23, increased investment is 10 crores and production has increased by 10 crore because of that investment only. So can I say incremental capital output ratio, that is to increase the production by 1 unit, I'm investing 1 rupee. That is called as incremental capital output ratio. Now can I also say, based on this explanation, can I also say, if you reduce the incremental capital output ratio, that shows improvement in the efficiency of investment. I'll repeat it. If the incremental capital output ratio reduces, that shows efficiency in the investment. That is, let's say for 22 and 23, it is ICAR is 1 rupee. What if I say for 23 and 24, ICAR becomes 0.8 rupees? For 23 and 24, ICAR becomes 0.8. What does it indicate? In 23, financial year 23, for 1 rupee, I was able to increase the production by 1 unit. But in the current financial year, by spending 0.8 rupees on the capital, I'm able to increase the production by 1 unit. So can I say efficiency of the investment has further improved? And if it is right higher rather than zero point 0.8, what if it becomes a 1.6 rupees rather than 0 0.8 rupees for 23 and 24? If ICAR becomes 1.6 rupees, does it not mean increase in the ICAR means capital investment is not efficient? It is becoming less and less efficient compared to last year. So all of you okay with this concept? All of you okay with this concept? Right? This is very important. Conceptually, you should be very clear. This idea is very conceptual in nature. You should be clear with that. Now, over a period of time, what has happened in India? What has happened in India? So there is one student who says, can't hear. Please hit the fix button, audio fix button, or refresh it, or please log in. Please log in again. It is going to become okay with you. Okay. So I'll repeat it again. Listen to me. Those who are saying it is very, very difficult, etc. My dear, let me ask you a very simple question. Imagine you set up a manufacturing facility. Okay, even if you have not understood this, don't worry. UPSC is not going to ask you calculation. Okay, let me ask you a very simple question. Imagine you set up a manufacturing facility. You will purchase capital, correct? You'll spend on capital. You'll set up a manufacturing right base. You'll purchase machineries, etc. Which means you have spent money on capital. So using that capital, how much is the output you have produced? How much is the output you have produced? Right? So capital divided by output, I'll call this as capital output ratio. And the argument is, for producing every unit, you should not be spending more over a period of time. You should be spending less money over a period of time. All of you will agree? To produce right the output over a period of time, you should not be spending more per unit. You should be spending less per unit. If you're spending more per unit, your productivity will not increase, right? Your productivity will suffer. So argument is capital output ratio should be lower. But I said, imagine you have totally invested 100 crore rupees in the capital and you have got an output of 20 crore units. Using that data, you can only find out capital output ratio is 5 rupee per unit. That is, you are spending 5 rupee to get 1 unit of output. But in that case, can you find out if you have invested money last year, right? Again, assuming it was done for a longer duration, 2000 to 23. Okay. So assuming you have done an investment of 100 crore for these 23 financial years. Now my question is, last year also you've invested money in capital. Can you find out what was the efficiency of that investment using only the data from 2000 to 23? No, you'll not be able to find out. Why? You will have the data, or you should have the data for last financial year. How much was your investment? And because of that investment, your production increased by how much? If you have that data, I will use that data and calculate. I've invested one rupee, and for every 1 rupee I've invested, my output has increased by 1 unit. That calculation is called as incremental. Incremental means increase. Incremental means addition. So if I want to produce one extra unit of product, I will have to spend a capital of 1 rupee. That is the meaning of incremental capital output ratio. Okay. And essentially what you need to understand, incremental capital output ratio has to decrease, not increase, has to decrease over a period of time. But in the context of India, please remember this, in the context of India, the incremental capital output ratio has been on a higher level. Rather than decreasing for many years, the incremental capital output ratio has increased, which means the investment is not becoming capitally efficient. It is becoming more and more capital deepering. That is, we are spending more money to produce the same unit of output. Right? That is a concern regarding incremental capital output ratio in the recent times in the Indian context. So these are the 4 very, very important points regarding the first 5-year plan. Let me go to the second 5-year plan. What is the importance of second 5-year plan? Second 5-year plan is also referred to as a Mahalanobis plan. Mahalanobis strategy or Mahalanobis plan. Now, why it is referred to as a Mahalanobis strategy or Mahalanobis plan? Very simply, it is named after a statistician, PC Mahalanobis. PC Mahalanobis, right? There was a statistician by the name of PC Mahalanobis. Please do let me know. All of you heard of Indian Statistical Institute, which is present in West Bengal, a premier institute in India, right? Indian Statistical Institute, right? PC Mahalanobis was basically the responsible party for Indian Statistical Institute. PC Mahalanobis is also referred to as a father of Indian statistics. Very, very well known statistician in India. So argument is simple. This right expert came out or was the main head in the preparation of the second 5-year plan, and that is the reason this plan is referred to as Mahalanobis strategy. Mahalanobis plan or Mahalanobis strategy. Okay, now what are the important points in the second 5-year plan? Remember this very carefully. In the second 5-year plan, Government of India changed the policy. What was the policy now? Government of India did not give focus or did not focus only on agriculture. Agriculture sector was pushed backward in terms of focus. Now Government of India focused on promotion of industries. Government of India promoted industrialization, industries in the second 5-year plan. Now please connect one more dot here. Please connect. What is that dot? All of you remember the 1956 industrial policy? Let me see. Does everyone remember 1956 industrial policy? What is the importance of 1956 industrial policy? All the industries were classified into 3 schedules. All the industries were classified into 3 schedules. In 1948, 4 categories. 1956, 3 schedules. And where do you think most of the important industries were kept in the schedules? It was under Schedule A. It was under Schedule A, and Schedule A will have only the Government of India. That is, only government shall set up the units under the Schedule A. Now link that with this policy. And then tell me, does it make sense to you? In 1956 to 61 5-year policy or 5-year plan, Government of India focused on industrialization. Government of India focused on industrialization. What kind of industries? Please understand. Let me explain the terminologies here. One is called as a consumer goods. One is called as a consumer goods segment, and the other one is called as heavy industries. Right? One is called as a consumer goods, and second one is heavy industries. What do you mean by consumer goods? Consumer goods are those set of goods which are consumed by the customers. Which are consumed. Consumed means used by the end user. These are not the products which are purchased for reselling purposes. All of you okay with this statement? These kind of goods are not purchased for the purposes of reselling. These are purchased for the purposes of usage. For example, like many of you ask me, sir, give me example. In all of your homes, mobile phones are there, correct? Mobile phones. Did you purchase a mobile phone to use it or to resell it? All of you okay with this? Right? Basically, any goods that you can find in your home, any goods that you can find in your home, right? TV, washing machine, AC, a packet of biscuit, right? Or let's say a cold drink that is sitting on your table, right? Mobile phone, computers, laptops, earphones, earbuds, headphones, all of them you purchased for the purposes of usage, right? So any product that the person will purchase to use it, not to add value and sell it again, no, to use it, these are called as consumer goods. These are called as consumer goods. So objective was to promote consumer goods. In fact, there is one more term called as basic industries. There is one more term called as basic industries. Second 5-year plan is also associated with basic industries. What do you mean by basic industries? Basic industries are those set of industries wherein Anything that is produced will be sold to another company for production purposes. I'll give you examples. Basic industries are those set of industries where anything that is produced will be sold to another company, and this company will start using this as a raw material. For example, please tell me steel, aluminium. Can I call this as basic industries? Cotton, paper industry, sugar industry. Can I call this as basic industries? So imagine I'm producing steel. For what purpose I'm producing? Because you will purchase steel from me. I will sell steel to you. Imagine you will manufacture a car. I will sell aluminum to you. You will use that to manufacture many other goods. So whatever is produced is not sold to the customer. It is sold to another industry which they will use for manufacturing of something else. And this is also very important. I'll tell you why. If you look at the agriculture regions, the region that went to Pakistan, that agriculture region was very important for us to get raw materials. I'll repeat the statement, right? If you look at the region, agriculture region that went to Pakistan, that region was very important for us to get raw materials, very, very important raw materials such as, right, cotton. Best example, such as cotton, such as various other agriculture commodities. That is the precise reason we started promoting development of basic industries, promoted agriculture in the first 5-year plan, and in the second 5-year plan, basic industries. Third one is heavy industries. What do you mean by heavy industries? Where the investment requirement, I repeat, where the investment requirement is very, very high. Requirement of investment is very high. Value of output is also very, very high. Can I give you one example? Please tell me, what about shipbuilding industry? What about shipbuilding industry? Do you think to build ships, investment requirement will be very small? Think again. What about aeroplane manufacturing? Aeroplane manufacturing. What about steel production plants? Steel production plants. So don't you think in cases of the three examples that I've given here, investment requirements will be very, very high. So all of you okay with this? Can I go forward now? Right. So in the second 5-year plan, the focus was to promote basic industries. Focus was to promote consumer goods production. Focus was to promote heavy industries as well. Right. So that is the second 5-year plan, and very famously referred to as Mahalanobis strategy, Mahalanobis plan. Under this plan, right, the objective was this: heavy industrialization as well as basic goods and consumer goods, increase the national income, as well as overall investment will start increasing. And finally, in the second 5-year plan, government of India targeted and started establishing steel production plants in India. For example, the steel production plant at Rourkela, Bhilai, Durgapur, etc. were invested and set up in the second 5-year plan itself. Now, the argument of the second 5-year plan was very simple. We will promote industrialization, and because most of the industries have been brought under the control of the government, please tell me, will that not kickstart a virtuous cycle of growth in the economy? I'll repeat the statement. The objective was we will promote industrialization. And because government is going to invest in a lot of these industries, apart from in some of the industries, private sector will invest, that will kickstart, that will promote, right, virtuous cycle of growth in the economy. That is, investment will increase, employment will increase, right? That will also lead to higher GDP, etc., etc. So all these benefits we wanted to extract from the industrialization plan. It did not work out. Second 5-year plan did not work out for India. Why? The reason was very simple. At this particular point of time, even government of India did not have sufficient resources to invest in all the industries that were kept as a target. The amount of investment that was there with the government, because the savings was lesser, the whole savings in the economy were very, very lesser. And I hope you understand how savings will play a very important role. Some of you will simply have this kind of a doubt. So on one side, you said government wants to spend money and set up industries, But on the other side, you're criticizing the plan, saying that savings were very less, sir. I will give you one statement. Please do let me know, does that make sense to you or not? If the savings are very high in the economy, if the economy has sufficient savings, then the government can tap into the savings by issuing bonds in the market. Does it make sense or not? Please do let me know. If the savings are higher in the economy, government will not save. It's a fact, by the way. Government doesn't save. Why? Its expenditure is higher than the income. Receipts are lower, expenditure is higher. So government doesn't save. It is a dissaver. But on the other side, if all of us will start saving money out of our incomes, can government of India get those savings by issuing government bonds to you? Answer is simply yes. Answer is a big yes. Right? For example, I'll give you one more example. I don't know how many of you read today's newspapers. How many of you know that very recently government of India issued sovereign green bonds again? Let me see. Right, government of India issued sovereign green bonds. Tell me, sovereign green bonds, all of you remember? Government of India very recently, couple of days ago only, issued sovereign green bonds, and yesterday the sovereign green bonds allocation was done by RBI. RBI allocated sovereign green bonds yesterday. 5,000 crore worth of sovereign green bonds were issued. Now, again, this is one concept of a sovereign bond. But apart from that, RBI will also issue other government bonds, right? We will purchase them. Our savings will go to the government. Government will use that money to spend somewhere else. So the cycle is very simple. Cycle is very simple. So if the savings in the whole economy are already very low, do you think government will be able to tap and get these savings to invest in industrialization? No. And government already has a shortage of resources. We were importing machinery. This promoted more and more import of machinery. We were dependent on import of raw materials. The idea or the argument of the second 5-year plan was reduce import dependence. But because we did not have sufficient resources in the domestic market, as a result of this, we became more dependent on the imports under the plan. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. The objective of second 5-year plan, we want to reduce import dependence. How? Produce more. Produce more in India. Right? Invest more, produce more. Right? Automatically, again, the investments will start increasing. Right? We don't have to import. Right? Everything can be done in the domestic market. But to achieve higher production, you need resources. You need money. You need raw materials, you need capital, but you don't have sufficient of all of these three. So don't you think as a result of this plan, we ended up importing more and more? Yes or no? Does it make sense or not? Right? For example, right? If you have a aim of reducing, right, a certain import dependence, but if you do not have manufacturing facility in India, what will you do? You want to produce more, so you need machinery, so you'll import machinery. You don't have raw materials, you'll import raw materials. So your objective was produce more so that import dependence will come down. But in order to achieve that, did your imports increase or not? Yes. Right, that is the reason why this particular plan failed. It was a failure as such. Right, so employment we wanted to increase, but we did not have a policy to promote employment. There was no policy. We wanted to promote investments. Savings were already very less in India. We wanted to reduce import dependence, but this policy forced us to import more and more. Right, that is the reason why the Mahalanobis plan or Mahalanobis strategy is said to be a bigger failure or a failure in certain situations, because it did not lead to the expected outcomes in the plan. Okay, so this is the second 5-year plan. Let me go to third 5-year plan. Third 5-year plan, 1961 to 66. What happened in the third 5-year plan? In the third 5-year plan, right, understand this, government of India realized that industrialization is not working a lot. Right, we have implemented industrialization policy, but we are not able to eradicate poverty. Income inequality is further increasing, etc. And where most of our population was working in India, where most of the population was residing in India. Government of India looked at rural part and it targeted agriculture again. It targeted agriculture again, right? So have a look at this. Emphasis was put back on the agriculture sector all over again, right? And this was the time period during which Green Revolution was also being promoted in Indian economy, right? So apart from this, government also promoted setting up of basic industries. So agriculture was the focus, basic industries were promoted. During the third 5 year plan, it did not succeed, right? The third 5 year plan was again a failure. The reason was, in many of the years which were covered under the third 5 year plan, there was a drought like situation in India. We did not experience a sufficient amount of rainfall. We did not get sufficient amount of rainfall. So you are targeting agriculture, rainfall is very less, drought like situation is there, famine like situation is there. So automatically agriculture sector output would be affected. In addition to that, India fought two wars in the third 5 year plan. The first war was with Pakistan, and the second war, or the first war in 1962 was with China, Indo-Chinese War, right? And the second one was with Pakistan, 1965. So whenever you fight a war, right, it's a general consensus. Whenever any country will fight a war, resources are not reserved more, allocated more for promotion of growth. Resources will get diverted for purchasing ammunition. Resources will be used to ensure that the soldiers will have all the equipments that they require. So when you have diversion of the resources and you are experiencing drought like situation, don't you think you will end up ensuring that agriculture sector will not achieve good growth? And even in the context of other GDP growth rate, investment, etc., funds will get diverted for something else. All of these factors, economic indicators will also suffer. And that is exactly what happened in the third 5 year plan. Because of the two wars, because of drought like situation, etc., the third 5 year plan was not successful. Third 5 year plan was not successful. And that is the precise reason why the third 5 year plan, after the third 5 year plan, we did not immediately implement fourth 5 year plan. Because if the third 5 year plan ended in 66, fourth plan should have been implemented from 66 to 671. Correct? If continuity is there, from 66 to 71, we should have implemented fourth 5 year plan. Government of India said this is not the right time period for implementation of 5 year plan because the plans are not working for us. We are not experiencing the expected outcomes from these plans. That is the reason we discontinued 5 year plans. Instead, we implemented annual plans. So from 66 to 69, there was a plan holiday. 3 annual plans were implemented. That is basically the points regarding third 5 year plan. Done. Now come to fourth 5 year plan, 69 to 74. Fourth 5 year plan, important. Point number one, there were two objectives which were the central focus in the fourth 5 year plan. One, we wanted to achieve right, very good growth rate, but stable growth rate, not volatile growth rate, stability in the economy. Okay. Second one was, we wanted to promote self-reliance. We wanted to promote self-reliance, Atmanirbharata. Right. So growth along with the self-reliance were the two very important focus areas of the fourth 5 year plan. But apart from this, the fourth 5 year plan is also known for one more very important policy of the government of India. Family planning policy were being promoted starting in the fourth 5 year plan. Please be very careful with this. Why, you will understand in a minute. Fourth 5 year plan is also known for promotion of family planning measures of government of India. This was the time period when government of India started promoting the family planning measures. And now please tell me, I'll give you a basic, right, one point so that it will help you to remember. Polity classes are over for all of you. Do you understand the importance of 1971 from the polity angle, from the polity perspective? Not economics, not the war, not with the pipa, etc. Can you understand the importance of 1971? 1971 is taken as that is basically the census that was conducted in 1971 is taken as a base for distribution of right the votes for election of president of India, etc., etc. So I hope you understand why 1971 is so important for India, right? Because after that, government of India started promoting the idea of family planning measures. And why there is a connection related to this? Very recently, have you come across newspaper article which says India has become the most populous country in the world now? Yes or no? Right? India has become the most populous country in the world. We have overtaken China, right, in population parameter now. Finally, in something, we have overtaken China in population parameter. So suddenly UPSC, I'm not saying guaranteed question, suddenly UPSC might ask you, in which of the 5-year plan, in which of the 5-year plan, the idea of family planning measures were for the first time implemented? Yes or no? Right? This can be a potential question. I'm not saying guaranteed question. This can be a potential question because the population was there in the newspapers. In which of the 5-year plan, for the first time, government promoted the concept of family planning? Can be asked. Please be very, very careful. Can be asked. Okay. So fourth plan is also known for family planning measures. Now, because we are talking about family planning, population, etc., today's newspaper, the newspaper that is, I believe, Business Line as well as Financial Express. Right? Understand this. Very recently, right, Government of India has started signing these agreements, which is called as again, you can write this in the concept of the planning. You can write it under the concept of employment as well, even under the social welfare. India and right Taiwan. Now there is a negotiation that is happening between India as well as Taiwan. In Hindu, it was not there. Today's newspaper, Hindu, it was not there. It was there in Business Line as well as Financial Express. In both of newspapers, it was there. What is the article I'm talking about? There is a labor movement agreement, labor movement or labor migration agreement. Now, what is this labor migration agreement? In fact, Government of India so far has signed around 13 plus agreements. 13, around 13 such agreements with other countries. Right? Again, please understand, this is how you add current affairs and improve the quality of your answer. Improve the quality, because you will not get these articles or these concepts in the books. In newspapers, you'll get it. What is the argument? Taiwan. Taiwan has a population, a large population, which is an aging population now, right? Aging population, and it is expected by 2025 around 20% of the population will be very old population. That is, in simple terms, a 60 plus population. So around a fifth of their population will become aged population now. And if the population is aging a lot, don't you think automatically there'll be a pressure on the labor market in that country? Does it make sense to you? If the population is aging, lot of population becomes aged like this, there is a lot of pressure on the labor market. Right? What kind of pressure? Sufficient labor is not available. Sufficient labor is not available, right? So what Government of India is trying to do is, they are trying to enter into an agreement already with many countries. They have said this kind of agreements. With Taiwan, they are negotiating an agreement wherein now Government of India says, we will supply a labor of 1 lakh units. Will supply 1 lakh labor units to you, right? You please hire them and pay them whatever you're paying to the local population. So understand this, right? What is the importance of this article, right? If there is a question about employment opportunities in India, right? What are the policies of Government of India to promote employment? Can you write this as one of the reforms undertaken by the government? Can you write it also as a way forward, right? So that more and more employment opportunities are generated for Indians, not only in India, but also outside India. So I hope you understand all of these are connected to the concept of population, concept of employment, social welfare, etc. etc. So come back to the discussion at hand here. So fourth plan, we wanted to promote self-reliance. We wanted to promote stable growth. We also started implementing family planning measures in the fourth 5-year plan. Apart from this, fourth point, fourth 5-year plan is also known for one more initiative, that is, in the 5-year plan, for the first time, it promoted regional level planning. It promoted local as well as regional level planning. That is, the plans should not be focusing only at a pan India level. The planning should also be done at the local level as well. That is, Panchayati Raj level. So these are the four very important points. Apart from that, if you want to remember, fifth important point, 69 to 74. This was also the time period when banks were nationalized. Correct? This was also a time period when the banks were nationalized. That is, 14 banks. If you remember the data, 14 banks were nationalized by the government of India in the year 1969. But later it was questioned in the Supreme Court again in 1970. Right, the government of India nationalized 14 banks. Right, so these are certain very important points regarding the concept of fourth five-year plan. Can we go forward now? I know some of you will be feeling right a lot of difficulty regarding these points because from one 5-year plan to another 5-year plan, different points are there. I could have given common points in all the 5-year plans. Common point is growth is promoted, this is done, that is done. All those are common points, right? There is no differentiating factor in all the 5-year plans. Growth will be promoted. But what are the differentiating factors between fourth 5-year plan to the third 5-year plan? Third 5-year plan to the second 5-year plan? I'm focused on those 3 to 4 points like this. Okay, fifth 5-year plan, 74 to 79. And what is the importance of fifth 5-year plan? Fifth 5-year plan, again, how do you remember it? Emergency. Do you remember the period of emergency? Right, so fifth 5-year plan was basically during this concept of emergency. And after the emergency was lifted, government of India, again, basically there were elections. For the legislature, there were elections. And one of the important policies of the government of India at this point of time was Garibi Hatao, right? That is, poverty elevation was the focus. Fifth 5-year plan, please remember, poverty alleviation was the focus. And in order to alleviate poverty, in order to basically eradicate poverty, government implemented a famous plan called as a 20-point program. Government implemented a very famous program by the name of 20-point program. Right, what is this concept of a 20-point program? There were 20 points which were mentioned in this program, and government of India wanted to achieve success in all these 20 points. What do you mean by these 20 points? For example, right, let's say providing housing to the people, providing drinking water to the people, ensuring the problems which are there in the slums will be addressed, women empowerment, right, etc., etc. So there were totally 20 points, and government of India set out this program to achieve success in all these 20 programs. Hence, this was called as a 20-point program. Right, so 20-point program was implemented in the fifth 5-year plan in order to eradicate the poverty in India. Apart from this, employment generation, right, social justice, self reliance, promotion of agriculture sector, all these were the areas which were covered in the fifth 5-year plan. Fifth 5-year plan is also known for one more initiative, integrated rural development program, IIDP. Again, don't read about the details of all of these programs. Simply remember the names. IIDP, Integrated Rural Development Program, was implemented in this fifth 5-year plan itself. That was basically a wage employment program, right? Wage related program for rural India. So, Integrated Rural Development Program was also implemented. Right, so controlling inflation as well as right, the change in the government. 1978 there was a change in the government. Fifth 5-year plan was right, basically stopped from 1978 to 1980. Another plan, that is a rolling plan, sixth 5-year plan, that is a rolling plan, was implemented. Even this rolling plan was not implemented for full 5 years because there was a change in the government, and the new government again withdrew rolling plan and started implementing sixth 5-year plan afresh from 1980 to 1985. Done? So these are certain important points regarding the fifth 5-year plan. Can we go forward? Anybody has a problem? Sir, was 5-year plan borrowed from USSR? Yes, USSR, that is former Soviet Union. They also had a similar program. They also had a plan for 5 years. Right? So we also took the same idea of having a 5-year economic plans. Any other question? Any other question? Can we go forward? Sir, how do we remember the points? My recommendation is try to make short notes for each of the 5-year plan. Two, or let's say 3 points, 4 points, 3 points, 4 points, maximum 3 to 4. Do not try to remember everything from all the 5-year plans, right? So I hope you understand. Very, very difficult to remember. Right now itself, if I suddenly appear in front of you physically, imagine this. Suddenly, if I appear in front of you and I'll ask you, tell me 3 important points regarding first 5-year plan. Many of you will get confused and tell me about third 5-year plan. Many of you will get confused and tell me about fifth 5-year plan. So I hope you understand. Do not try to remember all the points, right? Not more than 3 to 4 points. And definitely, yes, don't try to read everything about details. Don't read everything in details, not at all needed. For example, in all the 5-year plans, if you read, in all the 5-year plans, there will be multiple schemes, right? There is a scheme by the name of IIDP. Just now I've mentioned it. Remember what is IIDP? More than sufficient. It was a scheme that was implemented by the government in the fifth 5-year plan in order to promote self-employment. Wage opportunities was supposed to be created under IIDP. That's it, nothing more than that. Certain assistance was given by the government so that self-employment can be promoted in rural parts of India. Now, beyond this, how beneficiaries were selected, right? How many total beneficiaries were there? What were the states in which pilot projects were implemented? My dear, if you start reading that way, in the 5-year plans alone, there are hundreds of schemes. I'll repeat the statement. Right? In the 5 years alone, that is, in the 5-year plans alone, there are 100 schemes. Will you be able to remember all the 100 schemes? Again, I'm not doubting your capacity. Don't take it as a challenge and start reading everything. Not at all needed. Let's stick to what is needed, more than sufficient. Okay. Let me go to the sixth 5-year plan. Let me go to the sixth 5-year plan. Okay. In case of sixth 5-year plan, what are the important points? Point number one. In the sixth 5-year plan, Government of India focused on the development of social infrastructure. Sixth 5-year plan, various social welfare measures were also implemented. For example, have a look at this. Minimum needs program was started in the sixth 5-year plan. IRDP was extended to cover the whole of India in the sixth 5-year plan. So social welfare measures, infrastructure development, etc. were the focus in the sixth 5-year plan. Apart from this, very high priority was given by the government and basically to promote poverty alleviation. Eradication of poverty was one of the focus in the sixth 5-year plan. For the first time ever, please remember this point. For the first time ever, government allocated funds which were supposed to be used to reduce regional disparities. Regional inequalities were present. So government of India allocated funds in the sixth 5-year plan for the first time ever so that the funds can be utilized to reduce the regional disparities that are present right at that particular point of time. Okay. Promotion of agriculture sector. Promotion of agriculture sector as well. Right. So these were certain very important points regarding sixth 5-year plan. Apart from right, let's say minimum needs program, right, allocation of funds to reduce regional inequalities, promotion of social infrastructure, social welfare, as well as the other types of infrastructure. What was the importance of sixth 5-year plan? Please remember, sixth 5-year plan, for the first time ever, for the first time ever, that is, it was the first plan where gender issues were focused by the government, where gender issues were focused by the government in the plan. Gender issues were discussed and even women employment was promoted. Gender issues were discussed and women employment was also discussed or focused in the plan. So remember this, this is a specialty. Sixth 5-year plan was the first plan ever to discuss gender issues as well as women employment or women empowerment. Right, so these are certain important points regarding sixth 5-year plan. Now let me go to the seventh 5-year plan. Let me go to the next seventh 5-year plan, 85 to 90. Seventh 5-year plan was basically connected to lot of economic volatility in Indian economy. Lot of economic volatility. For example, the expenditure of government of India was successively increasing, continuously increasing. The deficits, government borrowings, etc., was also continuously rising up. Apart from this, the seventh five-year plan is known to be promoting modernization as well as self-reliance. Modernization as well as self-reliance. Please remember this. Seventh plan focused on modernization as well as self-reliance. That was the focus. Highest priority was given for agriculture sector, labor generation, higher food grain production, etc. Continued focus on the infrastructure development. It was focused in the sixth five-year plan, focus continued in the seventh five-year plan. Rather than going for import substitution, this is an important point, I'll explain it. Rather than going for import substitution, now we started to have an outward oriented policy. Now, what do you mean by rather than focusing on import substitution, we started having an outward oriented policy? Let me explain this. Listen carefully. To begin with, in multiple five-year plans, we targeted self-reliance, correct? Our target was self-reliance. Now, what do you mean by self-reliance here? Atmanirbharta. Atmanirbharta simply means rather than importing anything into India, rather than importing it, why not produce this good within the domestic market so that this good will substitute the import? All of you okay with this explanation? Let me explain it to you with an example. Imagine until last year, this was imported into India. Now this year, a similar bottle, similar product will be produced in India. Now, if you purchase, rather than importing and purchasing it, what if you purchase the bottle which was produced in India? Don't you think automatically it means we are substituting the imports? Does it make sense to you? We are substituting the imports. That is, rather than importing and consuming, we are consuming whatever is produced in the domestic market. So what was the policy initially we followed to promote self-reliance? We went for import substitution. Import substitution means whatever is produced in India, let's start consuming it rather than importing it. Reduce imports, produce in India, consume in India. That was the concept of import substitution. But please tell me, if you promote import substitution, don't you think that's a more of a narrow policy? Narrow policy means you're producing so that you can consume in India. But don't you think what makes better sense? More economic benefits will be provided if you produce and export plus consume in domestic market. Think of it. Rather than producing only to substitute imports, what if you produce it? You will consume also, you will export also. Right? So I hope you understand why there is a change in the policy. There was a shift in the policy. Earlier, we targeted the production of it so that we can substitute the import. But from the seventh five-year plan, government said, no, 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 let's not do that. Let's not only try to substitute imports. Let's have a policy to promote exports as well. So that we will produce it, we will not import it. We will start exporting it to the international market. So from the concept of import substitution to the concept of export oriented policy. That is also one more very important provision associated with the seventh five-year plan. Very important provision associated with the seventh five-year plan. And that is the precise reason you will see this was the time period when we started implementing foreign trade policies. Right? We have discussed foreign trade policies, correct? Foreign trade policies. This was also the time period when we started implementing foreign trade policies. Earlier, we had a policy by the name of export-import policy, EXIM policy. Rather than that, we started having a policy by the name of foreign trade policy. This was the time period during which we started implementing foreign trade policies. Done? Okay. So these are certain very important points. These are certain very important points. Apart from that, food processing, right? Industries were promoted. Programs such as Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, JRY, Jawahar Rozgar Yojana was also implemented from the 7th 5-year plan. So all of you okay with this? Right? In addition to this, not instead of this, in addition to this also, if you remember earlier class, financial year 89. Do you remember this? Right? Financial year 89. Right? What is the importance of financial year 89? Let me know. What is the importance of financial year 89? For the first time ever, agriculture sector registered a double-digit growth rate. Double-digit growth rate, 10.4%. Double-digit growth rate, 10.4%. Okay, so it was the first time when the double-digit growth rate agriculture sector registered a double-digit growth rate. Okay, that is also the importance of right, the 7th 5-year plan. Then can we go forward now? Can we go forward? All these are important points, right? Some of you are asking, should we remember all of it? My recommendation is yes. My recommendation is simply yes. Okay, so try to remember all of these particular points. It's important. It's important. 8th 5-year plan, 92 to 97. After 7th 5-year plan, there was a gap. There was a break. Why? Rather than having 5-year plans, we started implementing annual plans. We had annual plans. Okay. So we started implementing the 8th 5-year plan from 92, and thereafter we basically continued. So the 8th 5-year plan was implemented from 92 to 97. Now, what are the important points regarding the 8th 5-year plan? Let's start. First one, during this particular period, Government of India implemented LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So this was the time period when right, the Government of India implemented or started to implement the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And during the 8th 5-year plan, one more important point, the private sector investment. The private sector investment in the whole Indian economy was more than 50%. Please remember this. Private sector investment in the Indian economy was more than 50%. Meaning what? Investment will be done by the government also. Investment is done by the private sector also. So from the 7th 5-year plan, it started increasing. Until then, most of the investment in the Indian economy came from the government itself. Most of the investment. And if you ask me, sir, how can you prove that most of the investment came from the government? My dear, I'll drag you back to the 1956 policy, 1956 to 61, and the industrial policy of 1956, which means because the government controlled most of the industries, does it not mean most of the investment in the Indian economy was done by the government? Yes or no? Please tell me, does it make sense or not? Because the investment or most of the industries came under the Government of India, does it not also mean most of the investment in the Indian economy came from Government of India? Private sector invested. I'm not saying no investment was done by the private sector, but the most of the investment came from the government itself. But from the 7th 5-year plan, government started promoting investment even from the private sector. And in the 8th 5-year plan, because of these policies of the government, the private sector investment was basically more than the government. More than 50% of the total investment in the economy came from the private sector itself. So all of you okay with this particular point? Let me know all of you okay with this particular point. 8th 5-year plan is also known for one more point. It was the first plan to basically have universal elementary education. It was the first plan to have universal elementary education. It was the first 5-year plan to have universal elementary education, right? So this is one more very important point associated with the 8th 5-year plan. Right, faster growth of manufacturing sector, agriculture sector as it is was the focus area. Growth rate in exports as well as imports was experienced. The trade and current account deficit, right, was basically controlled in the 8th 5-year plan, and the fiscal deficit of the government was also brought under control in the 8th 5-year plan. Right, so these are certain important points regarding the 8th FIP. Can we go to the 9th FIP now? Let me know. Can we go to the 9th FIP? Anybody has got any kind of a doubt, etc.? What is the export outward oriented policy? I'll repeat it again. until the seventh 5-year plan, the focus of government of India was to produce in India so that we do not have to import it. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Until this particular point, the government of India was promoting the concept of import substitution, which means you produce in the domestic market so that you do not have to import it. You do not have to import it from rest of the world, right? Because you are substituting the product with the domestically produced good. The policy was called as import substitution policy. But in the eighth 5-year plan, in the seventh 5-year plan, government of India said, rather than producing, so that we will use it to replace a import or to substitute an import, why not produce it, so consume in the domestic market, also export to the international market? Export it to the international market so that you will start generating revenues. So with that argument, government of India changed the policy. Okay, right? That with that argument, government of India changed the policy there. Outward oriented policy. Produce so that you will consume, but also export. Okay, so that is the seventh as well as eighth 5-year plan. Before eighth 5-year plan, there was no elementary education. Who said there was no elementary education? I said it was the first 5-year plan to target universal elementary education. Understand what I'm saying? Okay. So ninth 5-year plan, 97 to 2002. Right? Ninth 5-year plan, 97 to 02. Right? This was announced in the 50th year of independence, 1947, right? 1997. In the ninth 5-year plan, Government of India targeted 7 services. Government of India targeted 7 services. That is, Government of India wanted to ensure that all the households in India, will get access to 7 services. Right? What kind of services? Safe drinking water, primary healthcare facilities, universalization of education, public housing assistance, etc. Right? So these were basically the target areas. Right? So government of India wanted to ensure that all the houses in India will have access to safe drinking water, will have access to education, and these they call this as basic minimum service. I'm sorry, 7 basic minimum services. In the ninth 5-year plan, government of India implemented a lot of FDI, right, reforms, and as a result of this, the door was open in many of these sectors, which attracted a lot of foreign direct investment. Okay, so apart from the domestic investment, we also started attracting a lot of foreign investments in the domestic market. It was also the 5-year plan where government of India started to discuss about fiscal consolidation. What do you mean by fiscal consolidation? The fiscal deficit, right? We wanted to control it, have a path, have a particular process where we will keep on reducing the fiscal deficit over a period of time. Revenue deficit was higher. We wanted to have a policy so that annually we will target certain reduction in the fiscal deficit, right, etc. So the discussion regarding the fiscal consolidation actually started in the ninth 5-year plan. And right, in the ninth 5-year plan, the government also targeted the concept of higher growth rate with stable inflation or stable prices in the domestic market. So these were certain important points in the ninth 5-year plan. Then can we go forward? Anybody has any kind of question, please do let me know. Rather than saying clear my doubt, right? Answer my question. I'm asking you now. What is the doubt? Tell me. No, nobody wants to ask a question. So stable prices, how? My dear, if agriculture sector production increases, if if imports are controlled, exports are promoted, etc., don't you think the prices in the domestic market will be stable? Yes or no? Right? If agriculture sector, even today, if you talk about it, if agriculture sector production is appropriate, and if you can ensure, right, let's say supply of these commodities in the market is right stable, prices will be stable. Of course, yes. What is elementary education? My dear, that you will have to read. Don't ask me a question. Tell me what do you mean by right elementary education? What do you mean by safe drinking water? Don't you think that you should know? That you should know by now. Okay. Third point. In case of the ninth five-year plan, we expected lot of investment to come from private sector. That we have seen in the seventh five-year plan also, eighth five-year plan also, ninth five-year plan also. We expected a lot of investment to come from private sector. So when you say private sector, can a foreign company invest in India and will that be a private sector? Of course, yes. A domestic company, right? Domestic company will invest in India. Private company will invest in India. That will also be basically private sector. Yes. So in this particular ninth five-year plan, as usual, we expect a lot of investment to come from private sector, not only from the domestic sector, but also from the foreign market. That is EFTI. Okay. Okay. So these are certain points regarding ninth five-year plan. Last point. What is there in last point? You wanted to achieve a higher growth rate with a stable inflation rate. That's it. Okay. Do we need to remember all the 7 BMS? Not needed. But again, if you can apply common sense, you'll understand it. Right? Housing facility, water facility, education. Don't you think these will keep on coming across multiple five-year plans? Please do let me know. Right? Housing, water, education, right? These will keep on coming across multiple five-year plans. So don't try to by heart everything. When they will ask you, tell me any example of a minimum basic services. You already know. For a household, what is a basic service? Housing should be available. That's a basic service. House should have drinking water facility. House should have electricity facility. These are basically education, etc. Right? So these are the basic requirements. Even today we are trying to do that. I hope you know this. For example, all of you heard of Jal Jeevan Mission. Let me see how many of you reading newspapers, by the way. All of you have heard of Jal Jeevan Mission. What is the objective under the Jal Jeevan Mission? One of the objectives is to ensure that all the households in India will have access to drinking water facility. We are trying to do that even today, by the way. Okay. Anyways, read the schemes, you'll understand. Now, 10th five-year plan. Right, 10th five-year plan, 10, 11 and 12, last three five-year plans. Don't worry, last three five-year plans. 10th five-year plan, what is the importance of 10th five-year plan? We targeted 8% GDP growth rate. Did we achieve that? No, of course no, we were not able to achieve that. We targeted 8% GDP growth rate. We wanted to reduce the poverty by 5 percentage points. We were not able to do that also. Don't worry. Providing high quality employment to the population. Providing high quality employment to the population. Reducing gender gaps in literacy as well as wage rates. Many of you ask me, sir, what is this gender gap? Whenever you look at the data in case of India, one, they will give you overall literacy rate. Correct? Overall literacy rate. How much of the total population is literate? But apart from that, right, don't you think they will give you one more set of data where they will tell you how many men are educated in India? How many women are educated in India? And you will see that there's a gap, huge gap between how much percentage of the men are educated, how many percentage of women are educated. That is a gender gap, right? So there is a gender gap, right? There's a gender gap in literacy also, in the wage rates also. We want to reduce it. That is one more objective. All children should be schooled in the by the year 2003. We were not able to achieve that also. Literacy rates should be reaching 75% by 2009, as well as ensuring that all the households will get safe drinking water facility, portable drinking water facility, right, by the end of this five-year plan. So these were certain important points regarding the 10th EFYP. 10th EFYP. Okay, so 10th five-year plan was implemented from 2002 to 2007. Finally, 11th five-year plan. 11th is the last five-year plan which was implemented completely. I'll repeat the statement. 11th 5-year plan is the last 5-year plan which was implemented completely. Do you understand the term completely? Right, that is basically for the full duration of 5 years. 12th 5-year plan was supposed to be implemented, but 2014-2015 government of India abolished planning commission was responsible for 5-year plans. Because you do not have planning commission, even the plan was not implemented completely. But anyways, 11th 5-year plan, what is the most important provision regarding the 11th 5-year plan? Inclusive growth. Please remember this. The central theme, the focus of the 11th 5-year plan was towards a faster and more inclusive growth. Towards faster and more inclusive growth. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, please tell me what is this meaning of inclusive growth? Inclusive growth means the pace and pattern of growth. I'll come back to this slide. Don't worry. Don't panic. I'll come back to this slide. Right? Inclusive growth simply means the pace as well as a pattern of growth. Now, what do you mean by pace as well as pattern of growth? Let me explain it. Whenever you talk about growth in any country, whenever you talk about growth in any economy, what generally happens is we will generally focus on GDP growth. Whenever we talk about growth in any economy, we generally talk about GDP growth. But can I say GDP growth rate is a quantitative concept? Can I say GDP is nothing but a quantitative idea, quantitative concept? Quantitative means what? We are simply measuring what is the market price of all the goods and services. That's it. We're simply measuring what is the market price of all the final goods and services. If imagine if India will achieve a GDP of $5 trillion, that is the target as of now. If India will achieve a GDP of $5 trillion, does it necessarily, I repeat, does it necessarily mean there is a reduction in poverty in India? Does it necessarily mean farmer suicides will come down? Does it necessarily means all the farmers are earning sufficient income? Does it necessarily mean children in India or the women, right, or men in India will get sufficient access to nutrition in India? I hope you understand the argument here. So whenever you talk about GDP growth, 10%, 8%, 12%, 7%, you are simply measuring a quantitative concept. But don't you think when you're achieving a higher GDP growth rate, the benefits of the growth should reach to all the other sections of the society? Correct? I'll repeat it again. When you're talking about GDP growth, GDP will increase from $3.3 trillion to $5 trillion. Let's say, right? So from 3.3 to $5 trillion, which means GDP increased. GDP growth rate is very high. Don't you think at the same point of time, the benefits of this growth should reach to all the sections of the society? How do you measure it? If children will get access to nutrition, if the infant mortality rate will come down, if maternal mortality rate will come down, if farmer suicides will come down, right? Don't you think that kind of a growth is preferable rather than simply achieving 5 trillion growth? I'm sorry, $5 trillion in GDP. All of you will agree? Anybody has a disagreement? Please do let me know. Right? What is important is you will have to achieve GDP expansion along with ensuring that the expansion in the GDP, the benefits will reach to all the people in the economy. Every section should get the benefit of expansion in the GDP. Right? That is basically the pace of the growth as well as pattern of the growth. Correct or not? If you're ensuring that GDP will expand, you're talking about pace. And if you're ensuring that the expansion in the GDP, the benefits will reach to all the sections, not few people, you're talking about pattern of growth. So can I say inclusive growth talks about the pace as well as the pattern of the growth? And don't you think both the pace as well as pattern, both are connected to each other? Correct? Both the pace as well as pattern are connected to each other, and government of India should achieve both of them. Anybody has a problem with the definition, please do let me know. Right, the pace and pattern both are connected, both are interconnected, and government of India should target both of them, should not target only one of them. We should achieve both of them. This is called as inclusive growth. Can I go forward now? This is basically the concept of inclusive growth. So in the 11th 5-year plan, for the first time, the 5-year plan spoke about inclusive growth, targeted inclusive growth. So that happened even in the 12th 5-year plan as well. So towards faster, sustainable, toward faster and more inclusive growth. Provided comprehensive strategy to promote inclusive growth. What can be done in order to promote inclusive growth? And again, many of you ask me, sir, how can we achieve inclusive growth? I'll tell you later. Don't worry. Don't worry. Just to give you a glimpse of it, please tell me, government of India as of today, can I say government of India is promoting initiatives which will help us in achieving higher growth. Along with that, there are also many initiatives which will help us in promoting development in India. Yes or no? I can give you examples. I can give you examples. What about Indira Awas Yojana? This, I'm sorry, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, not Indira Awas Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, PMAY. I'm taking current affairs example. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. What about, right? Let's say I'll give you one more example. National Food Security Act. What about Manrega? Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. You can call this a scheme or act. On the other side, what about PLI? Production Linked Incentive Scheme. What about RODTEP? Remission of duties and taxes on export products. Make in India. Startup India. Correct? So, and some of you will basically say, but sir, this can promote even development also. Yes, yes. There's a correction. For example, take PLI, Production Linked Incentive. In PLI, employment opportunity will be generated. And as a result of employment opportunity, houses will earn more income that will reduce poverty. So I hope you understand. There will be a connection. And I hope you understand why do we say in case of inclusive growth, the pace and pattern both are connected to each other, and we should achieve, we should target both of them together. Right? So that is a concept of inclusive growth. Okay. So provided a comprehensive strategy to promote inclusive growth in the Indian economy. There was a policy to promote education as well as a skill development, reduction in the gender inequalities, safe drinking water by 2007 to all the households. Please tell me, safe drinking water. We are looking at safe drinking water from 9th 5-year plan, 10th 5-year plan, 11th 5-year plan, 20-point program. So targets were set up for agriculture sector, GDP, etc. And right in the 11th 5-year plan, they also targeted to set up or to promote the development of agriculture infrastructure. Agriculture infrastructure. Okay. So these were certain important provisions regarding 11th 5-year plan. And finally, the last one, do not worry about this particular plan. Reason is this was not completely implemented in India. I repeat, this was not completely implemented. Somewhere in between, after abolition of planning commission, the 12th 5-year plan also was shelved by the government. Anyways, the 12th 5-year plan was supposed to be implemented from 2012 to 2017. In 2015, Government of India abolished Planning Commission, and in place of Planning Commission, we have set up one more authority, Niti Aayog. And Niti Aayog is not making any 5-year plans now. It is also not responsible for the implementation of 5-year plans. So in the 12th 5-year plan, the focus was, the central theme was faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. Faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. Impact of the crisis. What crisis we are talking about? There was a crisis by the back in the year 2008, global financial crisis, GFC. Back in the year 2008, there was a crisis by the name of global financial crisis, and India was also affected by it. So the argument is the global financial crisis affected the Indian economy. Just like it affected multiple countries, it also affected Indian economy. So there was the impact of the crisis, and in the 12th five-year plan, they basically promoted that. They argued that we should promote more and more savings in the economy. Higher savings will promote more investment. More investment will help us in achieving higher growth. Right? So the impact of the crisis can be overcome by promoting more and more savings as well as investment. Under the 12th five-year plan, 12, I'm sorry, 25, not 12, 25 targets were given. Right? Basically, we set up 25 targets which we wanted to monitor throughout the five-year plan. For example, GDP growth rate of 8% was the target. Agriculture growth rate of 4% was the target. Manufacturing sector, we wanted to ensure that 10% will be the growth rate in the manufacturing sector, etc. etc. So 25 targets were set up in the 12th five-year plan. And these are some of the examples of the 25. Do not by heart all the 25, not at all needed for UPSC exam. Done? So these are certain important points regarding the 12th five-year plan. Right? So in the last 1.5 hour, I've discussed all the 12 five-year plans with you. And I've ensured that in all the 12 five-year plans, at least 3 or 4 points which are important are mentioned, are given to you. You have to remember only these. Nothing more than this, as far as I'm concerned, would be necessary for you. Okay, done. Can we go forward now? Let me know. Can we go forward? Sir, is this also based on Harrod-Domer model? No. Initially, first couple of five-year plans, we targeted Harrod-Domer, sorry. Why? I'll tell you the reason also. Uh, Over a period of time, what you will see is, if you look at the evolution, right? If you just shrink everything, and if you look at the evolution, don't you think in the preliminary part of the planning, in the initial stages of planning, government was overly dependent on achieving a higher GDP growth rate? And after a couple of plans, what you will see is government will change policy and start saying that, okay, targeting only growth may not be a good policy. What we will do is we'll start targeting certain schemes. We will provide welfare to the people. We'll start targeting the poverty directly. Direct attack on the poverty. So I hope you understand. Over a period of time, the policy has kept on changing like this. Policy has kept on changing. So you cannot simply say even today government only follows Harrod-Domer model. If you say only follows Harrod-Domer model, that would be inappropriate. Why? Today we are not targeting only Harrod-Domer model. Of course, yes. Application remains same. Harrod-Domer model says increase savings. Is government promoting savings? Of course, yes. Reduce capital output ratio? Of course, yes. So we are following that, but that is not the predominant model that only is focused today, right? We are targeting inclusive growth. That is more appropriate today. Okay, done. Okay, right. So these are the achievements associated with the five-year plans. I'm putting everything together now. What has been the achievement of five-year plans? First one, GDP growth rate has increased. No doubt, GDP growth rate has increased. In fact, in the first 3 decades, I repeat, in the first 3 decades of five-year plan, the average growth rate was somewhere around 4%. Average growth rate, I'm talking about average growth rate. In the first 3 decades of planning, the average growth rate was somewhere around 4%, just over 4%. After this, especially after 1991 reforms, the GDP growth rate has ballooned in India. It has increased in India. And that is the reason I said, if you remember it correctly, right, there is a sixth five-year plan, seventh five-year plan. I said, this five-year plan, we achieved 6% for the first time ever. And that is important for us. That's important for us, right? So remember that. So initially it was on an average around 4%, but later, over a period of time, the GDP growth rate has picked up, right? It has picked up in the context of India. Second one, industries. The growth in case of industries. right? From 1951, if you compare that to, let's say, around 2010, there has been a huge surge in the industrial growth rate in India. The types of industries that India has, the import dependence that was present back in 1950s, compare that with 2010. We were majorly importing capital. Today also we get lot of capital, but please understand the status of India. The status of Indian economy today is much improved compared to what it was back in terms of 1950s. Right? So growth rate in the industries also has helped us. The BPL population also has reduced. What is this BPL? BPL stands for below poverty line. Below poverty line. BPL is nothing but below poverty line. So BPL percentage, BPL percentage, that is population which was considered to be poor, the percentage population has actually decreased. Back in 1990s itself, back in 1990s, the PPL population was somewhere around 45 to 46%. Today, as per Tendulkar committee, right? I'll take the data for Tendulkar committee itself, although it is a old data. Tendulkar committee says the BPL population in the context of India is 21.9%. But again, please understand, 21.9% as per 2011 and 12 population. 2011 and 12 population. Okay. Food production has increased. Back in 1950s, we were dependent on import of food grains. Today, because of various reforms of government of India, such as Green Revolution, India has become a net exporter of agriculture products. Correct? India has become a net exporter of agriculture products, right? And whenever government of India will have a certain policy to, let's say, stop exporting of rice, wheat, sugar, etc., in the global market, volatility is created in the global market. To that extent, we are important to the international agriculture sector. Okay. Now, having said so, yes, there have been certain achievements. Having said so, there have been also certain concerns regarding the 5 year plans, right? Although we have achieved a lot of success in certain areas, we have not been very successful in certain areas. For example, in the 5 year plan, we started promoting family planning programs. Were we efficient in terms of controlling the population growth in India? Answer is no. Even after implementing so many family planning programs, promoting family planning programs, we experienced a population growth, very high growth rate of population in India. And that essentially has led India to become the largest populated country in the world. And some of you might be thinking, sir, if at all a question is asked, how do we address it? Is the population good? Is the population bad? Now, please understand this. Do not have assumption that either a very high population is good or very high population is bad. Nothing of that sort. It all depends on how we utilize the population. I hope you understand my point. Do not be under the assumption that having very high population always bad. Not necessarily, right? Or a very high population is always good. Not necessarily. Why? Can we harness the higher population, increase production in the Indian economy, and increase our GDP? Yes or no? Please think of it. Can we harness? Harness means utilize the population, provide them with the skill set, and get more production done, increase the GDP, and become a very high GDP country in the global market? Of course, yes, we can do that. But at the same point of time, what if we are not able to utilize this population? I repeat, what if we are not able to utilize this population? Right? Don't you think today's working population, today's working age population, or any population which is in the age group of 15 to 59 years, that is a working age population. Tomorrow, that is, let's say after 30 years, after 40 years, will become a burden for the government? Please think of it. Right? Today's working age population, that is a population which will fall between 15 to 59 years, that is a working age population for us. We can use them. Again, don't criticize me for using these terms. When I say we can use them in terms of having production, But if you do not utilize them, there will come a point of time when the population which is aged above 60 years will be very high. If they do not have any savings, if they do not have any pensions, etc., the burden on government of India will start increasing. Correct? Burden on the government will start increasing. Right? Can you imagine the burden on healthcare infrastructure? Can you imagine the burden on every household to provide for the aging population now? Right? So that is the reason. Either you can use the population, nothing but demography. There's a term called as demography. You can use the demography to achieve higher growth. That is demography dividend. Otherwise, in the later phases, the demography will become a burden for the government. Right? So point is, but the point is very clear. Right? The population of India is very, very high. Despite implementing various measures, we have not been able to control the explosion of population in India. So failure to implement and control a population growth rate, land reforms were not implemented correctly. Reason is simple. Central government proposed land reforms. Land reforms are supposed to be implemented by the states. So the states uniformly did not implement land reforms. As a result of this, even today, in case of India, land reforms have not been implemented correctly. Lot of these reforms have actually failed. There was no structural mechanism to engage with the states. Meaning what? If you remember correctly, Planning Commission, please tell me, Planning Commission, I'll give you a statement, tell me whether this is correct or wrong. Planning Commission had representation of the states. Let me see. Statement is Planning Commission had representation from the states. Answer is no. Some of you are very interestingly saying yes. How? What is your source? Please tell me. Planning Commission did not have any representation of the states. National Development Council had representation from the states. Okay. And Planning Commission was responsible for preparation of 5-year plans. So we have one authority which is responsible for the preparation, but there is no representation of the states. That was in fact one of the criticisms against 5-year plans. So the idea is very simple here. There was no mechanism in the Planning Commission where the engagement was there, right? Where they could basically have the representation of the states to take their interest on the viewpoint, to take their interest into consideration when they were preparing 5-year plans. And one more criticism is one size fits all approach. Now, what is this criticism? There are two states, let's say A, B. One is right, very good in terms of social indicators. Another one is very good in terms of economic indicators. Now, please tell me, should you have only one plan for both of these states? Should you have same plan for both of these states? Right? I hope you all of you understand this argument. The answer is no, by the way. If you're still thinking, is it tricky question? Right? Am I wrong, etc.? Answer is no. Why? From one state to another state, requirements will change. Economic situation will change. And in that situation, you should not frame a same plan, only one plan for all the states in India. You should have a different approach for certain regions. So one size fits all approach, one plan for whole of India. From one region to another region, requirements will be different, right? For example, I'll ask you a very simple question. Don't you think there are certain states in India which are majorly affected by left-wing terrorism? Let me see. Right? There are certain states in India which are majorly affected by left-wing extremism or terrorism. Of course, yes. Right? So don't you think there should be a group of chief ministers from only these states which will come out with a policy? How do you control this? How do you address it? How do you promote growth and development in these regions, etc., etc.? That is being done in case of Niti Aayog. Such a concept is followed in Niti Aayog, but Planning Commission did not have any of these kind of approaches. The GDP contribution is skewed. How? Some of the states contribute very high, Employment growth rate is very high. Some states are falling behind. Agriculture sector accounts for around 49% of the working population and contributes 17% to GDP. Number of people who are working in agriculture sector, around 49% of total number of people in India who are working. Contribution 17%. Right? So don't you think planning has not addressed these kind of issues where population is very high, which is working, but contribution is very, very less. Next one, employment growth rate. Employment growth rate. Right? Even today, in case of India, one of the concern is, are we creating sufficient number of jobs? From 1 year to the next year, are we creating sufficient number of jobs? Again, there are two contrasting views. Government of India says, yes, we are creating sufficient number of jobs. But a contrast to this is, there is an argument of the jobless growth. We'll discuss that. Right? Today, we will discuss the idea of a jobless growth. Okay, that is the critical evaluation. Critical evaluation. Okay. So finally, what is the verdict? The 60 plus years of planning, we have been able to achieve progress in various sectors, but at the same point of time, there are various areas where we have not achieved success, and there is a need to focus on these specific areas. Right? For example, employment growth, regional disparities, nutritional access. I'll give you a current affairs connection. In the last week, all of you have come across extension of NFSA. Right? Either you say NFSA or Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. PMGKAY, Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. In the last week, this was one of the very important articles in all the newspapers. Rather than ending in the December this year, rather than winding up free food grains by December this year, this has been extended by 5 more years. That is 2028. Now, my simple question is, this extension ensure that there is sufficient nutrition access to the poor population in India? Think of it. Is this extension, does it mean that there is a sufficient nutrition access? That's a key point. Nutrition access to the poor population in India? Answer is no. Always do the critical evaluation. Some of you are saying yes, by the way. Answer is no. Let me prove it. Today's Business Line newspaper. There is one article regarding the same thing. The discussion that is there in this newspaper is, NFSA is nothing new in India. National Food Security Act, it's nothing new. This is being implemented from 2013. And before that also, we had public distribution system. So, idea of a food grain distribution, nothing new. But under Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, we are giving free food grains. Right? It is providing free food grains to the identified beneficiaries. But if you look at the survey data, if you look at various surveys that have been conducted, for example, there is one authority by the name of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. The FAO states that even today in case of India, around 36% of the population do not get sufficient access to nutrition. Do you understand by the term nutrition? Right? That is, those people who are going to the gym, they'll always talk in terms of carbs. They'll talk in terms of proteins. They will talk in terms of fats. If you look at NFSA, how much is the food grain that is distributed? Do you think using those food grains, a common man, a poor household will get sufficient access to protein per day basis? Think of it. Right? Do you think they will get sufficient access to fats on per day basis? Answer is no, by the way. Answer is no. Don't keep on wondering. Right? Because what do they distribute under all these food distribution programs? Rice, wheat. That is what they distribute. So argument of that article is simple. This extension will ensure that people will have sufficient food grains to survive. People will have sufficient food grains to survive, but it will continue to ensure that they will not have access to nutrition. Sufficient access to nutrition will continue to remain so. Right? So all of you okay with this argument? All of you okay with this argument? Why I'm talking so much? Suddenly UPC can ask you these kind of questions, my dear. They can ask you these kind of questions. Right? Again, please understand, don't criticize me before you jump to the criticism. There are good aspects to the extension. There are good aspects. What are the good aspects? Poor people who are already suffering, more relief will be given to them. They don't have to pay money. 5 kgs of free food grains are available to them. There's a distress in the rural market. To a certain extent, will help in controlling the distress. Of course, yes. There are good aspects to this extension. But equally, there are certain concerns also related to this extension. So you have a balanced viewpoint. You always have a balanced viewpoint. Right? What has been done? What is good because of this? But what is also the concern because of this? Always have a balanced approach. Okay, right? So this is the verdict. Why there has been an issue in terms of achieving all of this? Corruption, right, is a major issue. All the expenditures, all the subsidies that is supposed to reach to the people, it is not reaching. Even today, all of you will agree with my viewpoint, and let me know. There are multiple schemes, and if you're reading newspapers, I'm pretty sure you've come across multiple schemes related to this only. Government is spending money, but the right beneficiary is not getting the benefit. Even today, there are loopholes in the system. Corruption is very high. Right? Yes, it has reduced, but it is present. Right? Apart from that, the people's participation, right? That is everybody does not have access to the kind of knowledge that is expected from them. For example, schemes have been announced. Please check in your vicinity only. If you're from rural India, check in your vicinity only. Lot of farmers do not have any idea about many of the schemes which have been launched by the government for the farmers only. Correct. Lot of farmers in India do not have any idea regarding the schemes which have been announced by the government of India for the farmers. Right, so there's a problem in terms of right communications here. There's a problem in terms of ensuring that all these people will have the right knowledge and get access to the benefits. Apart from that, investments in case of India have been affected. Back in the 2008, investments have been affected. Very recently also, investments have been affected. Skilled labor availability is also very lesser in India. We'll discuss about skilled labor in the next chapter. Right, specialized investment institutions, they are lagging in India, but government of India is also promoting at the long term investment institutions. Best example, NABFID. Best example for this is NABFID. Okay, so that is the discussion regarding the concept of 5-year plans. Anybody has any kind of a doubt? Otherwise we can take a small break now. Let me know. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt? Can land acquisition could be the reason? Already I've told you that is one of the criticisms. That is a failure area. Right? That's a failure area. Okay. Any other question? Anybody has any kind of a question? Please do let me know. Otherwise, we can take a short break. I'll give you a longer break at 3 o'clock. Plan 6. What is the doubt in plan 6? You tell me. What is the doubt? Okay, done then. How land acquisition is a failure? My dear, land acquisition reforms have not been implemented in case of India. For example, again, when I say have not been implemented from 2013, and I'm actually surprised by the kind of questions you people are asking, which clearly shows that you are not reading current affairs. Trust me, it's a clear indication that you are not reading current affairs. Why? Let me prove it to you. I've mentioned this in the classroom also. Very recently, there was a discussion regarding Tata's nano company's land acquisition issue in Singur, West Bengal. And please tell me if you've read the newspapers correctly, was there a discussion regarding land acquisition laws in India because of that tribunal announcement. That is the order issued by the tribunal in favor of Tata. Did that not lead to certain discussions regarding land acquisition reforms in India? The land acquisition reform earlier that was implemented was back in 1894, right? Very, very old, very, very old. Sorry, post 1990 it was implemented. A century is old. And 2013 Government of India implemented a new land acquisition reform, LARR. LARR 2013. Right? Even in case of LARR, there are a lot of stringent conditions. So land acquisition, even today, it's not very easy in India. Okay, done. Sixth 5-year plan, third point is not clear. There are regional disparities. What do you mean by regional disparities? Certain regions of India were very well developed. Certain regions of India were lagging behind. They were not getting the same kind of, right, let's say investment, employment opportunities, poverty numbers were very high, etc. So in the sixth 5-year plan, for the first time, Government of India allocated funds so that in these regions which were lagging behind, certain reforms would be implemented. Because I'm discussing this, remember one more point I forgot to tell you: 11th 5-year plan. Remember this 11th 5-year plan, right? 11th 5-year plan is known for what? 11th 5-year plan is known for inclusive growth, correct? It is known for inclusive growth. 11th 5-year plan is also 11th 5-year plan is also known for one more initiative, that is certain provisions were there in the 11th 5-year plan to ensure that northeast region, I repeat, certain provisions were there in the 11th 5-year plan to ensure that northeast region in case of India, which generally lags behind in terms of growth and development, certain growth and development will also be promoted in the northeast region. Right? That was one of the provisions of 11th 5-year plan. Okay, done. So let me take a pause now. We'll restart the discussion at 2:17. We'll restart the discussion at 2:17, and at 3 o'clock I'll give you a very long break, 40 minutes break. Okay, so let's take a break now. We'll restart at 2:17. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible? Please do let me know. Am I audible so that we can start the discussion. Okay, let's start. So next concept I'll be discussing is Niti Ayog. Okay, Niti Ayog. I said 2015 Government of India abolished Planning Commission, and after abolishing Planning Commission, we set up one more organization, Niti Ayog. Let's have a discussion regarding Niti Ayog. Point number one, Niti basically stands for National Institute for Transforming India. Niti Ayog, Niti basically stands for National Institute for Transforming India. Niti Ayog, just like a planning commission, is also not a constitutional body. And that is, there is no constitutional provision or article under the constitution for Niti Ayog. Government, through its executive authority, through the executive order, has set up an authority by the name of Niti Ayog. Okay. Now, what is the composition of Niti Ayog? There are two very important parts of Niti Ayog, or there are two councils in the Niti Ayog. One is a full-time organization. Second one is a governing council. In a full-time organization, and even in case of governing council, Prime Minister, I repeat, Prime Minister by default is the chairperson. Right, so Prime Minister by default will be the chairperson in both governing council as well as the full-time organization. In full-time organization, apart from the Prime Minister, that is apart from chairperson, we have vice chairperson, we have a CEO, we have experts, we have right other members in the Niti Ayog. Who will appoint all these members? The appointments of all these members is done by the government of India itself. Now, apart from the Prime Minister and the Governing Council, we have a representation of states, that is the chief ministers of the states, as well as the lieutenant governors of union territories. The lieutenant governors or the lieutenant governors of union territories are also members of the Niti Ayog Governing Council. Done. Now, what is I'll come back to this slide, don't worry. What is the basic difference between a planning commission as well as Niti Ayog? What is the difference? How planning commission was different, or how Niti Ayog is different compared to planning commission? Right, planning commission, right? Basically, I make a comparison now. I make a comparison. Both of them have been established through executive resolution, through the executive authority of the government. In both of them, the Prime Minister is the chairperson, right? Chairperson or the chairman, Prime Minister is the chairman or the chairperson. Third important point, now we'll start discussing the differences. Planning Commission framed 5-year plans. I'll repeat the statement. Planning Commission framed means formulated, prepared, right, the 5-year plans. Whereas Niti Ayog is not responsible for 5-year plans. Today we do not have any concept of 5-year plans, and Niti Ayog is not responsible for 5-year plans now. Next, earlier planning commission, because they were making 5-year plans, because the 5-year plans were prepared by the planning commission. For implementation of the 5-year plans, funds were allocated by the planning commission, which means planning commission had financial powers. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Earlier, planning commission used to make 5-year plans, and the states would implement it. For the implementation of 5-year plans, funds would be allocated, which means a planning commission had certain financial powers. Today, Niti Ayog is not responsible in making any 5-year plan. Hence, the Niti Ayog does not have any kind of financial powers. Absolutely no financial powers have been allocated to Niti Ayog. The 5-year plan was prepared by the central government's planning commission, and then it was implemented across India. It was implemented across India, which means earlier under planning commission we followed top to bottom approach. Earlier in planning commission we followed a top to bottom approach. Top, at the highest level, plans were made and they were implemented across let's say all the regional levels. Whereas in case of Niti Ayog, right now they are not preparing any plans, but even then, any kind of a scheme, any kind of a program, initiative, etc., the Niti Ayog will recommend to the government. They will always have this plan first at the lowest level. That is, let's say at the village level, the plan will be implemented. then the plan will be implemented at a district level, then the plan will be implemented at the state level, then the whole of India will be covered under the plan. Can I say Niti Aayog basically follows a bottom up approach? Correct? Niti Aayog follows a bottom up approach. Planning Commission followed a top to bottom approach. And apart from that, in Planning Commission, there was no representation of the states. But in Niti Aayog, there is a representation of the states. So that is in Niti Aayog, there's a governing council. Within the governing council, the chief ministers as well as the lieutenant governors of the union territories, they are representatives. And so these are the certain very important differences between the Planning Commission as well as Niti Aayog. This question has already been asked by UPSC. Now, what is the objective of Niti Aayog? What is the function of Niti Aayog? I'll go point by point. Listen to me carefully. It is very difficult to by heart these statements. I hope you understand what I'm trying to convince you people of. It is very difficult or by heart all these technical statements. I'll try to simplify it. Listen to me carefully. Point number one. Central government will ask Niti Aayog to study and give recommendation on a particular subject. Okay with the first one? Central government will allocate a subject to Niti Aayog, ask Niti Aayog to study and give recommendation. Point number one. Point number two. Even if the central government is not giving any subject to Niti Aayog, apart from that, Niti Aayog itself can take up various areas of national interest, national importance. I repeat, Niti Aayog can take up various areas of national importance, study about this, and give recommendation to the government. Give recommendations to the government of India. And that is the second one. Third one, we are implementing various schemes, various programs, we are achieving growth, etc. But even after all of this, there are certain sections of people in India, there are certain areas, certain regions, a certain population. It is not getting the benefit of all of these policies. It is not getting the benefit of growth in India. Right? So Niti Aayog says there is certain population which is excluded. Excluded means they are not enjoying the benefits of the growth in India. So we will try to ensure that all this population, this society which is not getting the benefit of growth in the Indian economy, will try to include them, will try to bring them also and ensure that they will also enjoy the benefits. Right, so have a look at this. Evolved, right, to have a national level policy or to study certain areas of national interest, give recommendation to the government, to develop plans at the village level, and then right implement it, then implement it at the state level, then implement it at the national level or all India level. Right, so basically to have a bottom up approach in planning. Third one, to ensure that any subject that is referred to it by the government, they will take up the subject, study, and give inputs to government of India, suggestions, recommendations to government of India. Now, before I go forward, please tell me, if Niti Aayog will give any recommendation, is it binding on the union government? Just think of it. Do you think it is binding on the union government? Answer is no. These are recommendations. These are advices in nature, advisory in nature. These are simply recommendations. It's first and foremost. Your argument should be, sir, it is not a constitutional body. Right? It is not a constitutional body. Then in what way, right, this basically is a mandatory on the government? It's not a constitutional body. Right? So I hope you understand these are advices. These are just recommendations. Whether to accept it, not to accept it, entirely is the power of the government. Right? Design strategic long-term policies as well as programs, initiatives, and also monitor their progress as well as efficacy. In fact, please understand, within Niti Aayog, in Niti Aayog, there is one office. Right? There is an office called as a DMEO, Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office. DMEO. The role of the DMEO is that central government has multiple schemes, multiple programs. Whether these programs, are they being implemented correctly or not? what is the efficiency of these programs, right? Are we using the resources efficiently or not? The role of the DMEO is exactly that: development monitoring and evaluation office. Next one, to foster cooperative federalism. To foster cooperative federalism. Now there are two terms. One is called as cooperative federalism. Second one is called as competitive federalism. One is cooperative federalism. Second one is competitive federalism. Cooperative means both the center and states will come together, cooperate with each other, so that certain policy, certain reform can be implemented in an efficient manner. All of you okay with this? I'll repeat it again. What do you mean by cooperative federalism? Cooperative federalism, the argument is cooperative federalism is a system wherein both the center and the states will come together so that a particular initiative, particular measure or a reform can be implemented efficiently. Right? One example for cooperative federalism is Niti Aayog. Can I give you one more example of a cooperative federalism? GST Council. Let me know. GST Council. Can I say GST Council is also an example of cooperative federalism, right? Where both the center and states have come together, and the objective is to simply ensure that a reform such as GST is efficiently implemented. So that is cooperative federalism. So Niti Aayog is also basically promoting cooperative federalism in India. Now there is one more term, competitive federalism. What do you mean by competitive federalism? You're trying to promote competition between different units in the India. Within India, there are different units. For example, states, right? States are part of India. So you're trying to promote competition between all of these states. That is basically competitive federalism. Many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean? What do you mean by competitive federalism? How is Niti Aayog promoting competitive federalism? Let me give you one example. Right, let me give you one example. All of you heard of Export Preparedness Index? This was there very recent in the newspaper, not last 1 month, but before that. Export Preparedness Index, EPI. Export Preparedness Index. It's very, very famous now in India. Export Preparedness Index. Now, what is this Export Preparedness Index? Niti Aayog prepares Export Preparedness Index. And what does Niti Aayog do? There are various parameters under EPI. It will measure how each of the states in India are performing under these parameters, and it will provide a ranking for the states. It will basically provide ranking for the states. Now, what is the use of this ranking? You tell me, imagine you're an investor. Okay, imagine you're an investor. You want to invest and set up a manufacturing facility wherein you want to export these to the USA market. You want to export it to USA market. You want to export it to UK market. Now, if that is the objective, will you invest in a state which has been ranked very well in this index or very badly in this index? Let's see how many of you analyze it. Right? Will you try to invest in the states which have a ranking of 1, 2, 3, 4, or will you invest in a state which is ranked 21st, 25th, 28th, etc.? So don't you think, because you now know the importance of this index, you know that, okay, a state which is ranked first, it means the state government has a very good export policy, right? The state has a very good infrastructure which I will use to promote export, etc. So automatically, very good ranked states, ranked states will attract a lot of investments. Correct? They will be able to attract a lot of investments, right? So in order to have better ranking, don't you think all the states will try to implement a more infrastructure? They will try to implement better policies, thereby having a competition amongst themselves, having a competition amongst themselves itself. So can I say this is nothing but competitive federalism? All of you okay with this? This is nothing but competitive federalism. So in fact, I've given you one more article related to this in today's set of articles. Right, in today's set of articles, I've given you one more article related to this only. Right, what is the article I'm talking about? That is a composite water management index, CWMI, composite water management index. You will not get all of this in the newspaper, I'm sorry, in the books. In the article I've given it, please read that article. Suddenly UPSC can ask you about composite water management index, because Niti Aayog has announced that they may basically discontinue announcing a composite water management index. Right, in fact it appeared in Indian Express newspaper, November 6th. Today is November 11th. So November 6th, there was an article on composite water management index, which is one report, right? One report, one index that is published by Niti Aayog. But suddenly UPSC can ask you about this. Please be very, very careful. I hope you understand why I'm talking so much about all of this. UPSC has the tendency to pick up articles like this. Okay, done. So come back to this, to foster cooperative federalism as well as competitive federalism. All of you okay with these objectives of Niti Aayog? Can we go forward? All of you okay with these objectives? Rather than by hearting technical statements, try to remember simple way like this. To study the subject referred to by the government and give recommendations. Right, apart from this, they can also take up certain areas of national importance, study and give recommendation to the government. Right, they will formulate policies which will be implemented at the lowest level, then implement at the highest level. If certain sections of the society are not getting the benefit of the growth, formulate policies so that they will also start enjoying. Right, to promote competitive federalism, to promote cooperative federalism, etc. These are the objectives of Niti Aayog. So what is the importance? What is the importance of Niti Aayog? What is the importance? Point number one, Niti Aayog is a link between center and the states. It acts as a linkage between center and the states. Right, because Niti Aayog has a governing council, and in the governing council there is a representation of the central government as well as the state governments. So can I say it will facilitate, it will ensure that there is a linkage between center as well as states whenever policies are formulated. Second one, Niti Aayog will also act as a linkage between the private sector as well as government of India. Right, it will also act as a point of cooperation. It will also act as a linkage between private sector as well as government of India. How? Niti Aayog talks to private sector, holds consultations with the private sector. Many of the cooperative bodies are there, right? The corporate bodies are there. They will hold consultations with all of them, come out with various recommendations to the government. So it is going to act as a linkage between the private sector as well as government. Okay, so has been holding consultations with stakeholders from various industries, get the input, give recommendation, has provided strategic inputs to Government of India in various sectors. For example, bullet train project. Let me know, bullet train project. All of you heard of it? We have discussed this last week also. So bullet train project, Niti Aayog has given a recommendation to government. Niti Aayog also has given a recommendation to government in terms of land leasing reforms. Right, I'll discuss some of them after some time. So in various sectors such as agriculture, industries, services sector, PPP, Niti Aayog has given critical inputs to Government of India. Okay, it could also promote spirit of competitive federalism amongst the states. Right, I've given you example of this. Two examples I've given: export preparedness index, composite water management index. Right, all of these are examples of indices published by Niti Aayog to promote competitive federalism. Introduce the concept of accountability in the planning system. That is, within Niti Aayog, there is one office. I've told you about this office earlier also. Development, Monitoring and Evaluation Office. What is the role of a DMEO? There are various schemes, programs of Government of India where a lot of expenditure is incurred. So it is this office which will evaluate efficiency of all of these schemes. regarding expenditure, right? Regarding the objectives of the schemes, what is the impact of the schemes, should we make any alteration to the schemes, etc. Lot of studies are done by DMEO, right? So this is why Niti Aayog is very very important in terms of at policy making for government of India. In the last 5 to 6 years, there have been multiple recommendations, studies which have been done by Niti Aayog. You don't need to remember all of them. Hundreds of the studies have been done. You don't need to remember all of them. I'll give you some examples. I'll give you some of the examples. Let's try. Let's remember only that. First one, there was a committee that was set up, high powered committee, which was headed by Mr. Bibek Debroy. And Mr. Bibek Debroy recommended regarding restructuring of Indian Railways. This committee recommended regarding restructuring. Revamping means what? Restructuring. Regarding restructuring of Indian Railways. Second, there was one more committee which was set up by, which was headed by Mr. Arvind Panagiria. Mr. Arvind Panagiria. This committee has given recommendations regarding the feasibility of bullet train project in India. This has recommended regarding the feasibility of or viability of the bullet train project in India. Third one, there was one more committee which was set up by the Niti Aayog, which has given recommendation to Government of India. It was headed by Mr. Tajamul Haq. Mr. Tajamul Haq. Tajamul Haq is a very well-known expert known for land reform recommendations. He was an expert in the context of land reforms. And this Tajamul Haq has, this committee which was headed by Mr. Tajamul Haq has recommended providing or finalizing a model for land leasing for the states. Land Leasing Act for the states. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by land leasing? What has been recommended here? Again, understand the logic here. Land leasing basically means, imagine you own, I'll take a simple example. Imagine you have, right, 4 hectares of land. Let's say, imagine you have 4 hectares of land and you become IS officer. Please tell me how many of you becoming IS officer, rather than going to your office, will go to your land, start cultivating on the land? Right? All of you will simply say, sir, I have become an IS officer. Why should I cultivate now? I don't have time. I will go to, right, let's say the state where I'm posted. Now, who will cultivate on this land then? You will say, lease it out to me. You will give this land on lease basis to me. Right? All of you okay with this? Right? Be happy. You are the owner. I'm a tenant farmer now. You have given this land on lease basis to me. Now, the problem is that most of the leases in case of India, and lot of leasing happens in India, especially in agriculture sector, lot of leasing happens. Most of these leases which are given, allocated in India, are oral in nature. Are oral in nature. Do you understand the term oral? There is no agreement signed. Right? There is just an oral agreement between you and me. Now, please tell me in the future, after 6 months, after 8 months, after 1 year, if there is any dispute between me and you, owner and the tenant, how do we resolve this? I hope you understand the problem. How do we resolve all of this? Right? Don't you think there will be a lot of complications because of this? Right? Lot of issues will be arising because of this. So what this committee said was, let's legalize the land leasing, and right, let's create a framework. Let's have a framework where everything is put on paper. Everything will be documented. For example, right, in case of in case of land leases, now as per the recommendations, every detail has to be provided. For example, for what period land has been given on lease, right? What am I allowed to do on the land? Am I allowed to construct a well? Am I allowed, right, to create certain permanent infrastructure on the land? What kind of rights have been given to me related to this land? How much will be the rent I'll be paying to you, right, etc., etc. If there's a dispute, how the dispute will be resolved, everything will be documented. For everything, there is a paperwork. Now, if there is a paperwork, there is an agreement. Can you vacate me if I have not violated any of the provisions of this agreement? Think of it. Can you vacate me? If you simply throw me out, I'll go to the judiciary. Right? Some of you are saying yes. Very interestingly, some of you are saying yes. No. Right? I have an agreement now. You cannot simply throw me out if I have not violated any of these provisions. If you throw me out, I will take this agreement, go to the court. These kind of provisions are there in this recommendation that has been provided by Tajamul Haq. But please understand the difficulty nature also. Understand the difficulty nature. Land reforms are implemented by the states. Central government cannot force the state governments to implement. And that is a precise reason even today most of the states in India do not have laws regarding land leasing. Lot of states do not have any law regarding land leasing. Okay. Promote competitive federalism amongst the state governments. That also we have discussed. It has been asked to recommend on the population which is covered under National Food Security Act. 67% of the population, around 67% of 2011 population has been covered. Niti Aayog has been asked by the central government, look into the coverage. Should we make any changes to the coverage of population under NFSA? Give me a recommendation. A committee has been set up which is actively monitoring setting up, right, or revival of certain urea production plants in India. Right, that is urea production plants have been proposed at Ramagundam, Talcher, Gorakhpur, Barauni, Sindri. These are the 5 places where union government has proposed urea production plants. So a committee has been set up which will monitor the implementation of these urea production plants. A committee also has been set up under the chairmanship of Dr. Ramesh Chand regarding studying the issues related to sugarcane sector and providing recommendations which will resolve the issues permanently in the sugarcane sector. And finally, one more committee here. Niti Aayog also set up a committee which was headed by Justice, not Doctor, Justice Sikri, a former Justice of Supreme Court of India. So Justice A.K. Sikri committee was set up to give recommendations regarding online dispute resolution system. Right, so these are certain very important let's say committees, right, regarding certain subjects either referred to the Niti Aayog by Government of India or Niti Aayog itself has set up and given recommendation to Government of India. Now many of you are asking, should we remember, right, should we remember all of these recommendations of the committees? No, my dear, no. Right, in fact there are hundreds of committees, hundreds of reports which have been submitted by Niti Aayog to Government of India. It is not possible for you to remember all of them. Again, I'm not challenging you. If your target is right, let's say I want to pass UPSC in the first attempt, be very economical in terms of studying what is required. Because I know this is my last class, that's the reason I'm telling you. Many of you are under the impression that first attempt I'll take it easy, I will see, right, what I should do, what I should not do, right? That's just basically an exercise for me. My third attempt will be very, very serious attempt. Please don't have that concept, right? Do not approach UPSC like a 5-year plan. I hope you understand. Do not approach UPSC with a 5-year plan. Right? Don't say first year I'll do this, third year I'll do that, fifth year the most serious attempt I'll give it in the 5th year. No, absolutely a big no. Right? So first year, be very careful. Right? Focus. What is required? What is not required? What is not required? Don't even touch it. Do not even touch it. Right? Because for example, I'll tell you, Niti Aayog has given hundreds of committee recommendations. Do you need to remember all the 100 committee recommendations? That will take you more than 1 year to remember only that. So that is the reason, don't waste your time. Okay, done. So what is the criticism against Niti Aayog? First criticism, it is not a constitutional authority. It is an authority which is set up by Government of India. I expect the Niti Aayog to work like a free thinking authority. That is an independent body. We want it to work like that. But because it is not a constitutional authority, government can keep on changing the members at any point of time. What is the guarantee the think tank, that is an authority such as Niti Aayog, will give recommendations to government of India which are adverse to or which are opposite to the policies of government of India? Correct? All of you will agree with me? Again, I'm not saying Niti Aayog is doing it. I'm saying there is a concern related to this. Government can at any point of time change the members of Niti Aayog, remove members, add a couple of more members. Right? So, what is a guarantee that Niti Aayog will always give recommendations holding the interest of the country? Rather than that, they might simply provide recommendations which are mostly acceptable or in line with policies of government of India. Right? So, that is the first concern. In certain very important policies such as GST, Niti Aayog does not have any role to play. So it's such a very important body, but in certain important policies, absolutely no role for Niti Aayog. That is also the second concern. Third one, it does not influence any kind of investment, because earlier planning commission, 5-year plans were there, infrastructure projects were there. Government, because the 5-year plans is there, government would allocate funds for the investment purposes. Looking at these funds, because of 5-year plans, even private sector would invest lot of money. But here, Niti Aayog does not formulate a plan. Niti Aayog has no role in planning for India. That is, the 5-year plans are not there. Whatever funds are allocated by the central government alone. So Niti Aayog does not influence any kind of investment, but earlier planning commission had the power to influence investments. And finally, we have set up Niti Aayog. One of the objectives of Niti Aayog is to ensure that certain sections of the society which is not getting benefit, which is getting excluded from the growth, that should also be included. But despite setting up of Niti Aayog, the population in case of India, which can be called as poor population, is very, very high. Right? In fact, in terms of numbers of poor people, the number of poor people in India is very, very high. So, despite setting up, the inequality, the poverty, right, the gender gaps, etc., are still even today existing in India. Right? So, these are some of the criticisms against the functioning of Niti Aayog, National Institution for Transforming India. Can we go forward now? This is a discussion regarding planning as well as Niti Aayog. Next is questions. Third point. What is the third point? Earlier, planning commission would prepare plans. Let's say infrastructure plan was one of the provisions or one of the points in the 5-year plan. Now, in order to implement infrastructure, government would allocate funds. And if infrastructure is getting promoted in a particular state, don't you think private sector, they will also invest? They will see that roads are getting constructed. They will see that, right, railway projects are getting constructed. Right? So they will also invest and set up manufacturing facilities. So planning commissions, through their policy making, would influence investments. But Niti Aayog does not prepare any plan. Hence, it doesn't invest any kind of investment. Okay, done. Any other doubts? Long-term solutions means in third point. Long-term solutions is basically, right, in which point did I say? Where? Which one? Arey Baba, don't say third point, fourth point. Tell me which point. Right? Simply, if you say, sir, third point, sir, fourth point, tell me what point it is directly, rather than me running behind in multiple slides, etc., etc. I've explained the same thing. Okay, investment, I've explained it now. Okay, done. What is the point you told in importance of Niti Aayog link between? Hey Baba, Niti Aayog will act as a platform where center and states both are coming together and they are negotiating, they are holding consultations. That was the point I was trying to make. Okay, done. You people don't listen to me carefully. That becomes a problem. Okay, let's continue. Let's solve the question here. Two descriptive, sorry, three and one descriptive question. Okay, let's solve the questions. Let's solve the questions. Let's start. Okay, 73% have answered correctly. Despite being a high savings economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in output due to, that is basically application of G is equal to S upon R. It is a question on application of G is equal to S upon R. Right. So despite being a high savings economy, savings has increased. This might not result in significant increase in the output. That is, S is increasing, G is not increasing by a large number. Significant change is not there in the G. Why? Can I say it is because the denominator here, capital output ratio, is becoming very high. Does it make sense? CSAT, basic application of CSAT. Right? Numerator is increasing, but the outcome doesn't increase by much. Why? Because the denominator is also increasing. Right option is option D, high capital output ratio. High capital output ratio. Okay, done. Next one. Okay, 59% have answered correctly. The main objective of 12th five-year plan is a faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. Right? So option D is the right one. Faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. Right? This was the central theme or the objective of 12th five-year plan. Next one, slightly tricky. Those are saying question is not visible to me, etc. Then what is visible? Please do let me know what is visible. Refresh the page. Okay, 39% have answered correctly. With reference to India's five-year plans, which of the following statements is or are correct? From the second five-year plan, there was a determined thrust towards the substitution of basic and capital goods industries. Is there any problem with statement 1? That should be straightforward. Statement 1 should be straightforward. Why we have discussed this? Right, Malanomi strategy, heavy industrialization policy. Statement 1 is correct. The fourth five-year plan adopted the objective of correcting the earlier trend of increased concentration of wealth as well as economic power. Statement is also correct. Why? From the fourth five-year plan, you will see that Government of India having a policy of right? Eradication of poverty, or implementing certain policies to promote social welfare in rural part of India, to basically promote employment generation, self-employment opportunities, etc., etc. So it is the fourth five-year plan which adopted objective of correcting the earlier trend of increased concentration of wealth as well as economic power. Second statement is correct. In the fifth five-year plan, for the first time, the financial sector was included as an integral part of the plan. This statement is wrong. Why? Many of you will say, sir, nowhere in the discussion you use the term financial sector. But please tell me, point number one, is banking part, is the term banking, was it part of, or is it part of financial sector? Let me see. Is banking part of the financial sector? Answer is yes. Point number two, or let's say question, in which of the five-year plan government started targeting banking sector? Let me know. In which of the five-year plan, starting from which of the five-year plan, government of India started targeting banking sector? Right? Can I say it would be from fourth five-year plan? Fourth five-year plan. Arey Baba, just right. Go back. Right? We have discussed all of this. Nationalization in the banking sector, nationalization in the banking sector, that is from 66 to 69 three annual plans, and from 69 to 74, that was the fourth five-year plan. The first round of nationalization took place in the fourth five-year plan itself, right? So it says fifth five-year plan. Answer is wrong, statement is wrong. It is the fourth five-year plan. Okay, so right option for the question will be option A, 1 and 2 only. Okay, now a descriptive question. How are the principles followed by Niti Aayog different from those followed from the erstwhile Planning Commission? Right? Did we discuss this particular question only? That is, I've given you a comparison between, right, the Planning Commission as well as Niti Aayog. Correct? I've given a comparison between Planning Commission as well as Niti Aayog. Can you write that? Basically the same when this question is asked. How is Niti Aayog different compared to Planning Commission in 250 words, right? Or 150 words as per the requirement, Okay, now, before I go forward, many of you ask me, sir, where is the answer? My dear, the same thing that we have discussed earlier. That is, Planning Commission and Niti Aayog, both of them were established through executive authority of Government of India. And some of the students were asking, sir, executive authority, does it mean statutory body? I'm surprised by the question for a very simple reason. For all of you, I know polity classes are over. I know for a fact. This particular week, the morning sessions in polity got over. And before I started in the evening, before me, polity classes were over in the evening session. Now, don't you think there is a difference between a statutory body, constitutional body, as well as, right, basically the authority which is set up through executive resolution of the government, executive authority? All the three are different. Right? So all the three are different. So the answer to your question is Niti Aayog is a statutory body. Answer is no. Answer is absolutely no. Okay, now some of you are asking, sir, how should we answer these kind of questions? You have given a table. Should I write a table? My advice for economics paper, do not write a table. Do not write a table. Do not write in points also. Whenever this kind of question is asked, try to write in paragraphs, small paragraphs. That would be my recommendation. Again, I'm talking about economics paper. Do not try to replicate this everywhere. For example, please tell me, in a essay paper, should you write point wise like this? Let me see. Should all of your essay be in the form of point? No, absolutely no. Sir, where can I use the point structure then? Imagine there is a question on critical evaluation. Right? Can I give you an example? I'll take the same example that I've discussed earlier. The recent extension of Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana will provide food security but not nutritional security? Just a extempore question, just a question which you can make up, right? I'll repeat the question by the way. The recent extension of Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana will provide food security but not nutritional security. Critically evaluate the above statement. So in that case, right, you will have to write what are the positive aspects related to the extension, what are the concerns related to the extension. So in that case, I would recommend use the points. Use the point structure. The following are the positive or the benefits of extension. 1, 2, 3, 4. After that, the following are the concerns associated with the extension. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then finally, you can go for a way forward or a conclusion. So I hope you understand, right? Many of you keep on asking me what should be the structure for answering. There is no universal structure. I cannot simply give you one formula and say, use the formula in every question. It would be wrong. From one question to another question, the kind of formatting that you're supposed to follow, right? The kind of answer writing you're supposed to have, should it be factual? Should it be more conceptual? It will vary from one question to another question, right? So if you're right expecting a magic pill, that is only one right answer or only one right formula to write all the answers. No, there is no magic pill. Okay, so I've given you the answer to the question here. Introduction, briefly provide right a one statement regarding both, let's say, Planning Commission as well as Niti Aayog. Then basically provide what are the principles followed by right the Planning Commission and what are the principles followed by Niti Aayog. Right there itself, basically you are comparing and contrasting between two bodies. Okay, done. So this is the discussion regarding the concept of planning. Right, let's take a lunch break now or a longer break. But before that, I'll just give you one important announcement. One very important announcement. Next week Saturday, I hope you understand. Next Saturday, 7 a.m., we will have a doubt resolution session. We will have a doubt resolution session of economics. But please be aware, if you have any kind of a doubts, please write a mail to us. I repeat, if you have any kind of doubts, please write a mail to us. Right, the email ID is the same one that most of you are using now. The email ID is I'll just write it here. Just a second. The email ID to which you are supposed to send the doubts are these. Right, that is iaslive at byju's.com. islive@byju's.com. If you have any kind of a doubts, please send right your doubts to this email ID, and the subject should be economics doubt or economy doubt. Write the subject economy doubt, and any doubt you have regarding the Indian economy that we have discussed, please send it to islive@byju's.com. And this doubt resolution session will be done Saturday 7 a.m. We'll start maybe 1.5 hours, 2 hours. We'll finish off all the doubts. Then you can continue as usual. Okay, done. So this is the important announcement that I wanted to make. Let's take a break. After the break, we'll start with the next chapter. Right, the next chapter that I'll be discussing will be employment, inclusive growth, and finally we'll conclude with IMF. Three more concepts are left out: employment, inclusive growth, finally IMF, International Monetary Fund. If I complete all the three, then basically Indian economy from GS paper 3 will be complete for all of you. Done? Any doubts? Can we take a break? When will the class be over in the evening? I'm expecting, let's say we will start from 3:40, let's say plus 3 hours, right? 3:40 plus 3 hours. Okay. Huh. Strategy for the revision. Let me complete the next chapter. After that, I'll tell you what is the strategy. I would advise a strategy after that. Okay. Any other doubt? Any other doubt? Anybody has any kind of a doubt? No dozen? Okay. Let me stop the discussion here. We'll meet again at 3:40. Sorry, not 3:40. It's almost 3:10. So 3:50. We'll meet again at 3:50. Okay, so let's meet again at 3:50. Start with the next chapter. Done. And those who are asking, sir, is it the same class or another link is there? There's a second link. There's a second video. The video is already, the class is already scheduled. Rather than 3:40, we'll start the session at 3:50. Okay, done. Take care then. Let's meet at 3:50.